Hi guys, it's me, HD, and welcome to race day in Las Vegas. Hope you guys are well, and it is good to say that I am feeling better than I was yesterday, where, of course, I was doing my qualifying stream, and about an hour before qualifying began, I had to come off because I developed a bit of an illness and got quite ill and had to stop the stream and deal with that. So sorry about that yesterday. Like I said, I am feeling better today. I am not 100% though. You can kind of hear it in my throat. I can't really raise my voice to the, normal point that I can. And the reason that is because I think one of the glands in my throat is swollen. Not as bad feeling as it was this time yesterday. This time yesterday, it felt like I had been punched in the throat, extremely hard. It was really, really bad. And also because I didn't have quite enough sleep, and because of that plus the throat thing, I had a terrible headache as well. And yeah, I just had to stop the stream because if I continued that stream, it would have got worse and I would have been in a right state by the time I, planned on finishing, which would have been, half an hour after qualifying, eventually finished. So again, apologies about that. Again, I'm not going to sound at my very best in this stream. My throat, again, is not in the best condition. It's in good enough condition to stream, but I'm not going to be able to hit those high notes, let's say, during the race itself. Um, and yeah, at least I'm feeling better, put it that way, coming into this stream. And of course, with it being race day, Nib, my co-commentator, will be joining me in about an hour's time to go through what has been an infamous weekend in Vegas, which, is a typical thing in all of life when it comes to this particular city. But yeah, we'll also get into, what happened in qualifying and our thoughts going into the race as well. So yeah, he will be joining me in about an hour's time. And before we have him on, what we're going to be getting into is, firstly, of course, what happened in qualifying. We'll be going through the results of qualifying, getting into your starting grid, and then looking at the sector time data just to understand where certain teams were so quick around certain parts of the track. We'll also look at the speed trap data to see, whose top speed is very strong, and also to get an indication as to who has gone for what type of setup for this weekend's race. We'll also get into the long run pace from Friday, just to understand on the longer runs who has good pace and who does not. Then, of course, I'll get into my prediction. We'll also get into some race strategy as well. Just letting you know what Pirelli have said is the quickest race strategy for today, which I just looked at, and it is quite a surprise. And then we'll, go through the teams. I'll get into more detail how I think they'll get on. And then we'll bring Nib on, an hour before the race, and then get into the race itself. The race, 50 laps long. Shouldn't be, if there's no safety car or red flag, it shouldn't be that long of a Grand Prix, given it's only going to be like, what, a 1 minute 38, 1 minute 39 per lap time. So, yeah, it's not going to be as long of a race as maybe some people out there are suspecting it will be. But yeah, I am looking forward to the race because, one, we've never raced here. You never know. Maybe this track will produce a very exciting race. But also, we have quite a mixed up grid for this Grand Prix. Definitely outside of the top three on the grid. It is all over the place, really. So, yeah, we'll get into that in a moment. But yeah, just want to say, hope you guys, no matter what time zone you're in, what part of the world you're from, I hope you're all doing as well as possible. And I hope you'll be joining me this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, to watch along and enjoy, hopefully, the first ever Las Vegas Grand Prix. And of course, there is a poll running at the top of the live chat. where I've asked you guys, who do you think will win the 2023 Las Vegas Grand Prix? Make sure to vote in that poll to let me know who out of the 4 options I put in that poll, which are Verstappen, Leclerc, Russell, and Sainz. Out of those 4 drivers, given where they're starting on the grid, who do you think wins the Las Vegas Grand Prix? So, let's get into what happened yesterday. And I'll just get rid of the countdown. Of course, I will get it back on screen soon enough. But yeah, let's get into qualifying itself. And Ferrari were by far the quickest team in qualifying, as I hoped and as I predicted, to make for an exciting or more exciting race today. And yeah, look at that gap from Charles Leclerc to Max Verstappen. Basically a 0.4 of a second gap between the quickest Ferrari and the quickest Red Bull. That is probably the best qualifying effort Ferrari have had, not just this year, but probably since the early part of 2022. It was a dominant end to qualifying, and it is such a shame that Carlos Sainz has a 10-place grid penalty. Of course, the reasoning for it is, I mean, technically within the rules, yes, he has to take a penalty, but where is the common sense in regards to this situation? And it's so annoying as well from Ferrari's point of view, because if Sainz could start in second, I think Ferrari would have a very high chance of winning this Grand Prix. But with them only having 1 car at the front, it's going to make it much more difficult today with the race pace issues that we know they typically have. Maybe it won't be as bad today, but we'll have to find out. And then, yeah, Verstappen in 3rd. George Russell just behind in 4th. Great job by Russell. I thought he had a great day yesterday. We saw in practice, he ended up quickest by nearly half a second over the next car. And, yeah, in qualifying, did a great job and out-qualified Lewis Hamilton, his teammate, by a massive amount of time. Pierre Gasly qualifying in 5th. And the reason I laugh is because going into qualifying, I was talking about how, yeah, Alpine, they've probably got one of the slowest cars. I don't think they're going to really do anything. I don't think they'll be really able to get near the top 10. And then Pierre Gasly goes and qualifies in 5th place, only half a second off pole. Just typical, isn't it? But I have to say, again, Pierre Gasly is in such great form and is driving as well now as he was a couple years ago for AlphaTauri when he was really at his peak. So great to see from the gas man, and still going under the radar in terms of the second half of the season he's had. He's been consistently quick in that Alpine car and much better than Ocon, I think, in the second half of this season. And overall for the season, I'd say Gasly has been the better driver. Alexander Albon then in 6th. Williams on the 3rd. They're not. Actually, yeah, they are on the 3rd row, and they will be with both cars, because Logan Sargent, only a couple tenths of a second behind, qualified in 7th, and he will start for Williams in 6th place. His best qualifying result in his Formula One career. And that has to be, Williams starting on the 3rd row. That has to be the first time they've done that since, 2015, 2016, something like that. And that was a long time ago. Trust me. It doesn't feel like it, but given the way Formula One was back in 2015 and 2016, it was a very long time ago. And then Valtteri Bottas, good qualifying for him. Maybe not as good as it could have been, but still good result. And will start up in 7th place. And he has a good chance today to score some good points. Kevin Magnussen in 9th. Great drive from Magnussen. Good to see him living up to, what he is famed for, which is spectacular qualifying efforts. And then rounding out the top 10, Fernando Alonso and the Aston Martin. And Aston Martin very disappointing in qualifying. And in general, since practice 3, have been very disappointing. Not quite sure why they've been, lacking in pace. Because, if you look on Friday, they were one of the top probably 3 quickest teams. But yesterday they were not very quick and were probably quite lucky to be in the top 10, to be honest. And then for the rest of the order, Lewis Hamilton in 11th place, an absolute disaster for Hamilton. We saw in practice 3 and then, later on happen again. Lewis Hamilton proved to be way too slow compared to his teammate, ending up over a second off pole. And even though I don't think that he necessarily did the best final run in Q2, still, even if he had got into Q3, I don't think he would have been really anywhere near his teammate. Clearly some sort of setup issue as to why he was outside of the top 10. Sergio Perez in 12th. Perez, again, kind of like Hamilton, didn't do a great final lap before the end of the session, but Perez, towards the end of the session, or right at the end of the session, rather than being on track, was in the pit lane. And that is really what cost Perez getting into Q3. And that is a big shame for him. Should, though, make progress on that position. And he will actually be starting just ahead of Carlos Sainz in 11th place. And then it'll be Hulkenberg in 13th, Lance Stroll 14th, Daniel Ricciardo 15th. I think Ricciardo did well to get into Q2 because, to be honest, the AlphaTauri is very slow. Lando Norris then in 16th, and as you can see, both McLarens were knocked out in Q1. The first time they've both been knocked out in Q1 since, I think, would it be Miami? Was the last time that both McLarens were knocked out in Q1? It's got to be. It was quite the surprise when I saw that. Because I didn't actually watch qualifying live because, again, of how ill I was. I decided just to go to sleep and thankfully woke up feeling quite a bit better. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, wow. Because in practice 3, if you remember, McLaren looked a tad better. They looked like they were, probably good enough to get both cars into the top 10. But I wasn't expecting anything special, but I didn't think they would be, 16th and 19th on the grid, which is absolutely horrendous. Lando Norris also was in the pits towards the end of Q1, so they got that wrong. Also, I'm led to believe that he was possibly blocked by Sergio Perez, which may have not helped his cause. But for Oscar Piastri, I think Piastri just simply didn't do a good enough lap in Q1. So that's why he ended up in 19th. Esteban Ocon in 17th. He was screwed over a bit by some antics with Max Verstappen at turn 1 at the end of Q1. And I think Ocon, if that had not happened, probably would have got into Q2. And who knows what he would have done after that. Zhou Guanyu in 18th. Zhou has been absolute dog shit this weekend. He's been so far behind his teammate, not just in terms of position, but really in terms of lap time. It's been quite a disaster of a weekend. And then Yuki Tsunoda in 20th made 2 mistakes, I think, on his flying laps in Q1. And that's why he ended up in 20th place. But as you can see, with having 2 McLarens, a Mercedes, a Red Bull, and then Carlos Sainz, down in 12th because of his 10th-place penalty, having all of those cars from 10th to 20th on the grid, it should make the race a bit more interesting than maybe it would be in a more so normal type of weekend. So, yeah, I think the grid is set up nicely for, fingers crossed, what is at least a good race in Vegas. But let's get into the sector time data just to understand why the qualifying results, here's the top 10 again, why they ended up the way they did. Let's get into them. So sector 1, which is pretty simple. You've only got, 3 real corners plus a DRS zone. And the Ferrari was incredibly quick in that first sector. 1/10.5 quicker than the next best car and 0.2 of a second better than the Red Bull. And yeah, what a first sector from the Ferrari. And the thing is, with Leclerc, if you go look at his onboard from his pole lap, in turn one, the handling wasn't that great. So I think he could have done probably an even better first sector, to be honest. Kevin Magnussen, very impressed by his first sector in the Haas, and really a great pace from the Haas in qualifying. Max Verstappen in third place. Red Bull have struggled in the first sector. We've seen it a few times in that first corner or two. Red Bull has not really been handling that well through there. Then you've got the Mercedes in fourth, doing a decent pace, nothing special. Alfa Romeo lapping well, Alpine as well. Aston Martin, not good enough, I'm afraid. I think really they should have been at least a tenth of a second quicker through this first sector. Williams, I'm a tad surprised they were only the 8th quickest team in Sector 1, given how, high they qualified. But, at least they still ended up getting a very good position. And then a big drop-off to the McLaren, and nearly 8/10 of a second in qualifying, slower than the Ferrari of Leclerc, and then the AlphaTauri of Ricciardo, a second slower than Leclerc. I know the track evolution at this track is very high, but to lose a second in qualifying to the quickest team at just the first sector and only 26 seconds is alarming. And AlphaTauri have been alarmingly bad this weekend. Yeah, Ferrari, the Kings through there, and the Kings through the second sector. We saw on in practice too that Ferrari were very strong through there, and that has only continued in qualifying. Pretty much 0.2 of a second quicker, the Ferrari, than the Red Bull in the middle sector. And the Haas, once again, very, very quick. One of the top 3 teams once again in another sector, just ahead of the Mercedes. The Williams, I have to say, very impressed by their speed in the middle sector, given there is 2 or 3 slow corners in the middle sector, and I wouldn't have expected the Williams to be as quick as this in this particular part of the track. So yeah, impressed by that. Alpine, their pace is absolutely fine. Aston Martin, again, I think should be at least a 1/10 of a second better through this part of the lap. Alfa Romeo, you could argue that with them as well. AlphaTauri, again, poor. And then McLaren, no idea why they're that slow in the middle sector. And then the final sector, which is flat out except for that final chicane, no surprise, Williams and Ferrari, the 2 fastest teams through there. And this final sector really is what put the icing on the cake for Williams in them getting such a good grid position. And then with Ferrari, obviously, for them, it was really the same. Putting the icing on the cake to really secure a first and second in qualifying. Alpine, very impressed by their final sector time. I'm guessing that they did cut some drag off, try and help their speed in the final sector. Mercedes' pace is well good. Aston Martin's is to be expected. Same with Alfa Romeo and maybe to a degree AlphaTauri. Red Bull, though, very weird final sector for them. And the reason I say that is because when you look at this final sector time, they're, almost a 1/4 of a second slower than Ferrari. You would expect, well, maybe Red Bull have got more downforce on and they've gone for a bit more of a higher downforce setup. But as you'll see in the top speed data in a moment from qualifying, that is not the case. And then Haas, also quite slow. I think with them, though, that is the case, that they did have for qualifying, and they do have for the race as well, a higher downforce setup on than pretty much everybody else. And that definitely, I think, is the reason why in Sector 1 and Sector 2, Haas were so quick. And then McLaren, no surprise, the slowest team. Their top speed also the worst, as we'll get into now. Here are the maximum top speeds by team in qualifying. This speed trap, by the way, that the data was collected from, is the speed trap located at the end of that back straight where obviously Carlos Sainz hit the manhole cover in practice 1. So yeah, Red Bull despite being nearly a quarter of a second slower than the Ferrari in that final sector, they had the best top speed in qualifying. And Max Verstappen's top speed in the other Red Bull was not too far off of Perez's. So it's not like Sergio got a massive slipstream or something. So yeah, I don't understand why they had a lack of, top speed in that final sector. I don't understand that. Maybe they just got a really poor run through the final chicane a lot of the time, or even from the final corner before that back straight that caused them to have a poor run onto the straight. Who knows? But I don't think it's setup related. I think it's got to be some sort of handling imbalance or something like that, which has caused that. Mercedes' top speed very good, and I think that's the reason why, with George Russell, they were a bit quicker than expected because they cut the drag off to help them, especially in the second half of the lap. Williams, quick. Alfa Romeo, quick. Alpine, a bit quicker than normal. Again, I think that's because they've cut some drag off. Ferrari, I've got to say, positive to see that they didn't have to be at the very top of the speed trap to be, doing the pace they were in qualifying. So that does show that they've got good amounts of downforce on also, rather than just having a very low drag setup. Aston Martin's not great. AlphaTauri's not great. And then you can see there with Haas, one of the slowest top speeds. And we know from viewing this data through 2023 that normally Haas are in the top 3-4 every single weekend. So I think clearly Haas have put a higher downforce setup on, probably to try and manage the tyres better. And that's why Magnussen was so quick in the first and second sector, because, yeah, in the final sector we saw the Haas was very slow. And if, the Haas was, say, a couple tenths of a second better in that final sector, Kevin Magnussen could have been starting on the third row of the grid today. That's just how quick he was in sector 1 and 2. And then McLaren, very slow. We know McLaren's top speed is always quite bad. And I don't know why. Maybe I'll get into this a bit more later when I get onto McLaren. But if you look at this season, I don't feel like McLaren have had one good weekend around a street circuit. Saudi Arabia, they were poor. Melbourne, they got a good result with the car they had at the time, but their pace was not very good. Baku, they got a good result with the car they had. Miami was terrible. Monaco, they got a good result, but their pace was horrendous compared to the front-running teams. Canada was okay. What other street circuits have we had? Well, Canada's not really a street circuit, but yeah. And what other street circuits have we had this year? Don't think we've had any other ones. So, yeah. I have noticed that with McLaren this season, that around street circuits, I don't know if it's because they just have very low mechanical grip, but they just don't seem to be good around street circuits. Kind of like, what do you call it? They're basically like the opposite version of Alpine, where if you notice this season, Alpine have been quite strong at street circuits. McLaren, basically the opposite. So yeah. But those are the top speeds, and that is the sector time data from qualifying. Let's now get into the long run pace from practice 2 and look at who has good race pace for this race today and who doesn't have good race pace. I will also read out who did their long run on what tyre compound. Not for everybody, because I didn't have the information for everyone, but I do have it for most of the teams and drivers. So Red Bull had the best long run pace, and what makes Max Verstappen's long run even better, his best or his average time was 1:39.1, but that long run was done on the soft compound tyre, when most of everybody in this top 10 did their long run on the medium. Now, the best race tyre for today is probably going to be the hard tyre, and at the softest, the medium will probably be a decent race tyre. But the soft compound tyre, for example, I don't think is a good race tyre at all. So I think if Max had done his long run on the medium, I think probably would have done like a 138.8 or, something like that on average. So Red Bull's race pace is really good. Ferrari's is lacking compared to Red Bull, but it is much stronger than everybody else. So Leclerc did his long run on the medium. Russell did his long run on the medium compound tyre as well. Mercedes' race pace looks, given, what their grid position is, looks good enough for them to get the podium, but I don't think they're going to be anywhere near fighting for the race win. AlphaTauri's race pace, though, very good, and so is Alfa Romeo, so watch out for Bottas starting in 7th, and maybe AlphaTauri suddenly will, become quick again in this race. Aston Martin's race pace is not that good, but it's not terrible. Williams's is okay. Alpine's was not really that good. Neither was McLaren's. Their race pace on in practice too was very poor. And then Haas, of course, as normal, the slowest team. With AlphaTauri, I don't know what compound they did the long run on. Neither with Alfa Romeo. Alonso did his long run on the medium. Albon did his long run on the medium. Ocon did his long run on the medium compound tyre as well. And Piastri, also did his long run on the medium. And with Hulkenberg, I don't know what compound he was on. So in this race today, it should be, in terms of the pecking order of who is the quickest, down to the slowest in clean air, it should be Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, and then probably, honestly, I'd probably say Alfa Romeo, 4th. Not quite sure with AlphaTauri whether this pace is genuine, so I'd probably say, I don't know, maybe Aston Martin ahead of them in 5th, and then AlphaTauri 6th. Williams 7th, Alpine 8th, McLaren 9th, and Haas in 10th. Again, there are a couple teams here that I don't think necessarily will be as quick or as slow as they were with their long runs in practice too. Maybe, teams like AlphaTauri and McLaren, and maybe even Alpine. But the midfield, really, outside of, Leclerc, Verstappen, Russell, with drivers like, Gasly, Albon, Sargent, Bottas, Magnussen, Alonso, and then drivers further down, it's going to be a very close fight, and the pace is going to be, I think, quite similar through the field. Yeah, should be a good fight in the midfield, hopefully a good fight up front as well, given that Leclerc, in the slower car for today, is ahead of the faster car of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. But let's now go on to my final predictions for this 2023 Las Vegas Grand Prix. And let's get on to it now. And the gaps I've gone for on the right-hand side, those gaps are depending on if we have a full, clean race without any, safety car or red flag during the 50 laps. So I think Max Verstappen will win. I think the Red Bull is going to be too quick. And at some point, probably between lap 15 and lap 25, I think Max Verstappen, either on track or in the pits, will get ahead of Leclerc and win by not a massive margin, but a comfortable enough one of 12 seconds from Leclerc 2nd. Russell, I think, will finish in 3rd, with Perez 4th, Sainz 5th, Hamilton 6th. Alex Albon, I'm going to go in 7th. I think he is going to have a strong race today. Gasly, I'm going to go in 8th. Bottas just behind in 9th. And in 10th, I am going to go with Logan Sargent. And I really hope for Williams that my prediction does turn out to happen, because 7 points for them in this Grand Prix would be massive. They're only, I think they're only 7 points ahead of AlphaTauri. So if they were to get those 7 points and AlphaTauri don't score any, that's a 14-point gap going into the final race, and 7th place at that point will be secured. So massive race coming up for the Williams team. But yeah, let me know, guys, in the live chat and in the poll running, what do you think is going to happen in this Las Vegas Grand Prix? I want to hear from you guys in that live chat. Share your thoughts with me ahead of Lights Out. Quickly, before we get on to the teams in more detail, just want to let you guys know about my plan for content coming up for the final race of the season, which of course is next weekend in Abu Dhabi. Here are my next 2 live streams on the channel. I'll be live on Thursday night at 8 p.m. UK time for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix weekend preview. And then I'll be live 1 day later at 7 p.m. UK time on Friday night for the qualifying preview. And then, of course, on the Saturday, it'll be the Practice 3 watch-along and the qualifying watch-along. But, of course, Formula 2, for the final time, is back in Abu Dhabi. And we do have a championship to decide in Formula 2. And it can be decided in that sprint race on the Saturday. So that's what we're also going to be watching along. In between Practice 3 and qualifying on the Saturday stream. And then, of course, next Sunday afternoon will be the final race day of the season. So make sure to join me for all of that next week. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. For everybody watching right now, as usual, make sure to smash that like button, as we've got an hour and 28 minutes to go until we are underway in Vegas. And yeah, we're on 33 likes at the minute. So yeah, I think we could probably get up to 40, 45 plus likes in the next, say 20 to 30 minutes. And good to see all you guys here. And by the way, if you are wondering, I did get some rest and I am feeling better. Still not 100%, but I am definitely feeling better than yesterday. So yeah, I'm good to go into this Grand Prix and into, of course, this stream. But before we bring on my co-commentator for today, Niblo, and he'll be coming on in about, half an hour from now, let's get into the teams in some more detail, and I'll get into how I think their race will exactly play out, and also what the strategy keys are for the teams that maybe get the result they, ideally want in this race. So we'll actually, before we get onto that, just want to quickly get into what Pirelli have said, the tyre supplier, of course, for Formula 1, what they've said the quickest race strategy is for today. And according to Pirelli, the quickest strategy for today is a 2-stop race. According to them, the best way to do the race is to start on the medium compound tyre, pit between lap 10 and 15, go on to the hard compound tyre, and then pit between laps, say, 25 and 30, to go on to another set of hard tyres, which would then take you to the end of the race. I am surprised by that because, again, the temperatures are not very high for, what is typical for Formula 1 races. But also, there's not that many long, hard corners, at this track. So I am surprised by that. And I do think there is a good chance that, predicted best strategy will be proved wrong. I still think it is possible and definitely for certain teams worthwhile trying a one-stop race today, because I don't think overtaking is going to be as easy as some people think, and maybe as Pirelli think or some of the teams think it will be in this race today. So yeah, I think we will most likely see maybe some people do a 2-stop race, but I think we will see quite a few people as well going for a 1-stop Grand Prix. And if you're going to do a 1-stop race, ideally, you want to pit around lap 20-ish and then go onto a set of hard tyres to finish the race. I think if the front runners especially, if they are pulling away very quickly from the midfield, I can see them definitely converting their race into a 1-stopper. But let's get into the teams. and we will start with Red Bull Racing. So let's go and start with Max Verstappen. Starting in second, of course, was quite far of a pole position yesterday. The furthest he's been away from pole, it feels like, in a while. And Red Bull were firmly second best yesterday and were nowhere near Ferrari. It was not necessarily a shock they were slower than Ferrari, but it was a shock that they were, considering what we thought was going to happen coming into the weekend. It was definitely a bit of a shock, the gap being so big. But going into this race, the race pace for the Red Bull looks very good. And if I was a Red Bull fan, I would be very confident going into this race today. Because thankfully for them, and luckily, very luckily for them, the second Ferrari of Carlos Sainz has a 10-place grid penalty. If Carlos Sainz were starting in second, this race would be a totally different affair. But because Sainz is starting in 12th and not in second, it is not necessarily an open goal, but it's like a half open goal for Verstappen today, because with the great pace that he has and that the Red Bull has on the long runs this weekend compared to the Ferrari, and even though I don't think it's going to be super easy to overtake here, given the pace advantage the Red Bull has, he should be able to keep up with Leclerc as long as he doesn't have a bad start. And I don't think Leclerc is necessarily going to, get away from Verstappen very quickly. So Verstappen doesn't necessarily have to pass Leclerc on track or start getting really aggressive or pushing really hard on track, because he should be able to keep up with Leclerc pretty easily. And then whether it's on track or through strategy, eventually Max Verstappen will get his way past. It will probably be, I think, on track between, like I said, lap 15 and 25. I think Verstappen will get the move done because the Red Bull is too quick. And then, Max Verstappen will relatively comfortably win the Grand Prix. For Sergio Perez, qualifying in 12th, starting in 11th, I think the only thing they can do really with Perez is put him on maybe a bit more of an aggressive strategy. And maybe if we're going to see today a mix of a one-stop and a two-stop race, I think Perez, it'd probably be better for him to be on a two-stop race. I don't think it would be a good idea to start Perez on the hard compound tyre. And the reason I say that is because of the cold track temperature. And I think it would be a bit of a risk to do that. So I think the best thing for them to do is start him on the medium, and then either, if he's not making, much progress, then convert him to a two-stop strategy. But if he is making good progress up the field and he's passing, the Williamses, the Haas, the Alfa Romeo, Gasly and the Alpine, then what I would do is put Perez on a one-stop strategy, but, do a long first a stint with Perez, which we know he can do. And, if Verstappen, say, who will probably start on the medium, if he's going to go till lap 20, then Perez probably needs to drag his stint out till lap 25, 26, maybe 27, and then can go on to a set of hard tyres. And then that way, he, once he comes out from his pit stop, he, should be in relatively clear air, and then can push hard after George Russell for third place. And that is obviously presuming that Perez is ahead of Hamilton, Sainz, and Alonso, which he probably will, because the Red Bull is going to be a lot quicker today. So, Sergio Perez, I think he will be, decently quick today. And I think Perez will finish in fourth place. And he won't be that far away from Russell, who I think will take the final podium slot. But because Perez is simply starting too far back, I think he's got too much work to do to finish in third place. If Perez was starting on the fourth row of the grid, I think Perez would get the podium. But again, he's starting too far back, I think, for him to be able to do that. So fourth place, I think, for him. And Max Verstappen, I think, will take his 18th win of the season. And it would be then, Red Bull's What would it be? Red Bull's 20th win of the season if they win today, which would be a record because no team in F1 history, guys, has won 20 races in a single season. So that is a record up for grabs for Red Bull today. Mercedes-Benz, Lewis Hamilton, as we said, very poor qualifying, and I'm sure it is setup related because there's no good reason for him to be so slow compared to his teammate. And it was also the case in practice 3. Yeah, he just clearly was struggling with the balance of the car and was seemingly in a completely different car compared to Russell. Hamilton starting in 10th place because of Sainz's penalty. I don't think Hamilton has the pace to keep Perez and Sainz behind. I think those two cars, especially with the top speed they have in comparison to the Mercedes, I think they will be able to get their way past. But I think Hamilton should have enough pace to come home and finish in 6th place, even though it won't be that eventful of a race for him. I think he needs probably a safety car at the right time for him to really, get into this Grand Prix. For his teammate, though, George Russell, what a qualifying it was for him. Only just behind Max Verstappen. He was 8 thousandths of a second slower than Verstappen in qualifying. Mercedes, I think, coming into the weekend, would have been very happy. Told him they would only be that far away from Max Verstappen in qualifying. So yeah, Russell, brilliant lap. Mercedes also getting the setup right with his car because the top speed very good for him, which is obviously great to see. And I was going to say, because obviously this Grand Prix, where we're at in Europe and, everywhere that's east of, North and South America, this race is taking place on a Sunday. But of course, in Vegas, this race is taking place on a Saturday. And what is Russell's nickname? Mr. Saturday. Let's see what he can cook up. Hopefully, he can get into that fight with Leclerc and Verstappen. Realistically, though, I don't think he can. I don't think the Mercedes car has the pace to keep up with the Ferrari and the Red Bull. And I think, to be honest, if Russell did come home in 3rd, I think he would be pretty happy with that because I think he would know that given the pace the Mercedes has had this weekend in comparison to the Ferrari and Red Bull, that is, given where Sainz is on the grid and where Perez is on the grid, that is realistically the best that he can do. And he's done, the absolute best so far this weekend. So, yeah, I think he will solidly finish in 3rd. He won't be finishing miles ahead of whoever's in 4th place, but I think we'll keep up a good enough pace to come home in 3rd and take his first podium since when was George Russell's last podium? It was a long time ago. Yeah, I'm not sure when his last podium was. Definitely before the summer break, I want to say. Was it Spain? I think it was the Spanish Grand Prix. Or maybe it was a race after that, I'm not sure. But yeah, he hasn't had many podiums this season, Russell. So hopefully can get one today. Ferrari, brilliant day yesterday. Their best qualifying of the season and their best day of the season. Let's be honest, it was super for this team. And as we have continuously seen in the second half of this season, Ferrari it's got better and better. They've found a better way with this car. They've upgraded it to the point where they have really got on top of the issues they had in the first half of the season. Plus, they have found a setup for the car that works, to get the best out of it that they can, given the fundamental issues that the car does have. So, great to see Ferrari again on pole, and for the second race, or the second time rather, in the last 3 races, ending up with a 1st and 2nd in qualifying. That is a very good omen going into next season. So yeah, great for Ferrari. Charles Leclerc wasn't the absolute best lap he could have done, but was still good enough for pole position. And it's a shame that Carlos Sainz is not starting in second, because if he was, I think Leclerc probably would win the race today. But that, 10-place penalty for Sainz, which is complete bullshit, we know it. It's going to ruin Ferrari's race, because I think really Ferrari, given how good they were in qualifying, probably more so deserve to win this Grand Prix this weekend, because up until this point they have been the best team this weekend. So it's such a shame that that's happened. Leclerc, I'm sure, will give it his absolute all and put in a great performance, but because of the lack of race pace that we already know about, I don't think there is enough that Leclerc can do to end up finishing as the winner of the inaugural Las Vegas Grand Prix. By the way, absolutely superb once again from the Las Vegas Grand Prix organisers, because on the driver parade with some classic cars, the what is it? There's been that much oil from underneath the classic cars dropped on the straight, the pit straight, that they've now had to pour cement dust over it and are now trying to make it, a bit cleaner. What an absolute shit show. Seriously. Yeah. Anyway, Leclerc, yeah, I think even if he is at his absolute best in the race today, which he probably will be, I don't think he can do that much about, winning the race today. Really, what's going to decide the race today is not necessarily Leclerc not being good enough. It's going to be more down to the pace of the car and the tyre management as well of the car. The only thing Ferrari can do is be aggressive on strategy, and instead of letting Red Bull dictate, the strategy and letting Red Bull, let's say pit first, try and undercut, I think the best thing for Ferrari to do is for them to dictate the strategy. And if it's going to be a two-stop race, Ferrari 100% have got to pit before Red Bull, because if they don't, then I think they're in big trouble. So yeah, if they can pit, say if they are going to do a two-stop strategy, if they can pit, say, between lap 10 and lap 12, then I think that would put them in good stead, as long as there is a good gap to drop into where Leclerc's not going to lose a load of time. And then again, with the second pit stop, they need to make sure they go a bit earlier so they can so they can, not suffer from an undercut from Red Bull. But if they do a one-stop strategy with Leclerc, then the only thing they can do is, as soon as a big enough gap becomes available to drop themselves into, and it's close enough to the one-stop pit window opening, then, they should come in and, make that pit stop. But I think even if they are, more so dictating the strategy and are more aggressive, I don't even think that is going to stop Red Bull. I mean, it would give Ferrari a better chance of stopping Red Bull, but I don't think ultimately would actually stop the Red Bull team from winning. So yeah, little they can do, I'm afraid. Carlos Sainz starting in 12th. I think he will have a good progression through the field and come home to 5th. I think with Sainz, they will probably do a two-stop strategy with him, just to make sure they get him up the field and make sure they can clear those midfield cars, very quickly. But yeah, if Ferrari do end up with 2nd and 5th in this race today, considering the, bullshit of Sainz starting 10 places down for something that is not his or the team's fault, 2nd and 5th would be a good result. 28 points. That'd be more points than Mercedes if they were to finish where I predicted. And it would keep that fight going for 2nd in the championship to the final race next weekend in Abu Dhabi. Let's now go on to McLaren. And yeah, what a disaster for the what do you call it, for the McLaren team in qualifying. 16th and 19th. Lando Norris did not have a smooth Q1. From what I heard, he was blocked by Sergio Perez and was in the pits towards the end of the session. So just wasn't really a smooth Q1 for the team. But I think in general they did have a lack of pace as well. I don't think if Lando Norris had got through the Q2 that Lando necessarily would have been, fourth or third on the grid or something like that. So yeah, McLaren, very poor pace. And as I said a few moments ago, in general around street circuits this season, they've been mostly quite poor. So yeah, they've just not really enjoyed these types of circuits. And I think, going into this race today, they are just going to go for it. Probably go for a super aggressive strategy. And the two drivers are probably just going to full on send it whenever they can because they know that there's nothing to lose. And as well, they know that next weekend in Abu Dhabi, they're probably going to be back to the pace we saw in Brazil because the Abu Dhabi track will suit their car very well. So, again, nothing to lose. Obviously, no. I mean, fourth place in the championship is still up for grabs, but I'd be surprised if Aston Martin did score enough points to overtake McLaren, in these last couple races. So, yeah, just full send, I think, from McLaren today. That is what they need to do. Talking of Aston Martin, let's go on to them. 10th, or not 10th, 9th and 14th, they are on the grid. Getting back to what they have been like in the second half of the season most of the time. I mean, in Brazil, yeah, they were fantastic, but looks like that was just a blip, unfortunately. Alonso, I think, did the best he could, but the car just was not quick at all. And Alonso did say after qualifying that he is basically a sitting duck down the straights. So I don't think Fernando is looking forward to this race. And because of that, because of the lack of pace in general of the Aston Martin, I don't think Aston Martin are going to score any points today. They don't have good enough straight line speed. And through the corners, they're not quick enough compared to the other teams. Definitely teams like Alpine, Haas, Williams. So, yeah, Aston Martin are just not in a good place. And once Hamilton, Perez, and Sainz behind them, or behind Alonso, get past him, then Aston Martin are in for a very difficult evening in Vegas. And yeah, I'd be maybe not surprised if they scored points because if we do get a bit of a crazy race, then Alonso probably then will grab a couple points. But I would be very surprised if they came out of this race, happy with what they've got out of it because even with a couple retirements, I don't think they're going to get really anything out of this Grand Prix. And now we'll just whiz through the rest of the teams and then I'll bring Nib on as Nib actually saying on the chat, left-hand side of the pit straight, but as seen the cement dust, which is for, P2, P4, P6, etc. So, yeah, be interesting to see the start of the line that Max Verstappen gets. And I'm sure that will make Max Verstappen even happier during a weekend where he's been super happy, over the moon. And, just in a fantastic mood. Let's go on to Alpine. What a eventful qualifying they had. Esteban Ocon was a bit screwed over with what happened at the end of Q1, and I do feel a bit sorry for him because that was just a very messy ending with Verstappen dive bombing him, and they very nearly made contact. It was very close between the right rear and the left-hand side end fence of the front wing of Ocon. It was very, very close, and that did cost Ocon probably enough time for him to get into Q2, and that's why he is starting in 17th place. For his teammate, though, Pierre Gasly, what a qualifying. 5th, he qualified yesterday, and he starts from 4th on the grid. What a brilliant lap, brilliant session from Gasly in general, and just proving, again, about, why he's had such a great second half of the season. We've said it, so many times in the second half of this season that Gasly has been out of the midfield pack, he's been one of the better drivers on a consistent basis. We saw in Brazil a couple of weeks ago, really great drive. Obviously, a couple of weeks before that, he had another great one in Texas. I remember, obviously, had a podium right after the summer break as well. And really, since the summer break, has been much better than Esteban Ocon. And I think Gasly will score points today, but I don't think the Alpine is going to be that quick in the race today. And I do think Williams will be, at least with Alex Albon, a tad quicker today. And that's why I've got Albon finishing ahead of Gasly. 4 points, though, for Gasly in 8th place, which is my prediction for him. It's still a good result, given that, Hamilton, Perez, and Sainz a bit lower down the field. You obviously would expect them to, overtake Gasly and finish ahead of him. So, yeah, that would still be a good result and would be another very solid points scoring finish for the Frenchman. But really, I mean, Alpine are not fighting for any particular position in the championship. They've already secured 6th place. So yeah, as long as they get a decent point scoring finish, then that's all that matters. But if Gasly can finish in the top 6, if possible, that would be the cap, or the not the cap, the icing on the cake for a brilliant weekend. Williams also, what a weekend they've had so far, and they are on the 3rd row of the grid, which, as I said earlier, I think that is the first time they have locked out the 3rd row of the grid in 7 or 8 years. It's been a long time since we've seen Williams, so high on the grid. And great to see Logan Sargent, who we must remember is the home driver here, the American, starting in such a great position. And I do think, because of his great pace this weekend and the great pace of the Williams, I do think Logan will get at least 1 point from this race. Alex Albon, though, will be the main man for Williams as usual. And I think probably on the first lap, he will pass Pierre Gasly and then be the winner, basically, of the midfield race today, finishing in 7th place. And that has to be around about the aim, I think, for Albon in this race today. And if he was to finish there, that would be a brilliant, brilliant result. A great drive from Albon. And it would basically secure 7th in the championship, which they desperately need Williams to progress forward for the future so they can afford to, update their infrastructure and make progress going forward for the next few years. So a big day ahead for Williams, and I think they will have a double points finish. And if they do get that, then again, the fight for 7th between Williams and AlphaTauri should be over. Talking of AlphaTauri, terrible weekend. I think Daniel Ricciardo honestly did pretty well to get into Q2, because I think, given the pace they've had, really both cars should have been knocked out in Q1. And maybe you could argue Ricciardo was a bit lucky to get through to Q2, given the unusualness of the McLarens being knocked out. Both McLarens knocked out in Q1. So yeah, Ricciardo I think did a very good job, but AlphaTauri have been terribly slow, and I don't see really what they can do in this race. Maybe they'll gain a position or two, but I think really they need to rely on chaos and some DNFs if they're going to score a point today. That's what is going to need to happen if AlphaTauri are going to come away from this race with any sort of good result. And hopefully, from their point of view, Williams don't quite have the race they hope for. Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas starting in 7th. What a weekend he's had. He's been consistently in the top 10, and Alfa Romeo's pace has been consistently good throughout the weekend. And I think Valtteri, as we saw earlier with the long runs on Friday, the Alfa Romeo, and it typically does as well, have a good race pace. And I think starting in 7th, he's got a decent chance of a few points. And remember, Alfa Romeo are only 5 points behind AlphaTauri. So if Bottas can finish 8th, for example, or even 7th, then that puts them right back in the game. And actually, if Valtteri Bottas finished in 7th place today, then Alfa Romeo would go back ahead of AlphaTauri in the championship in those very crucial constructors championship positions. So big race for him today and the team, and I think he will score points, but I don't think it will be enough for them to get really close to AlphaTauri in the championship. I think I've gone with ninth for him, but I think he will be very close with Pierre Gasly towards the end of this race, so watch out for that in the second half of the Grand Prix. Zhou Guanyu, absolutely diabolical weekend. Once again showing why, in my view, he doesn't deserve to be on the grid and he isn't good enough, because those performances where he does do well are very few and far between, and there's too many of these performances where he'll be miles off Bottas, who, Valtteri is still a very quick driver, but Valtteri is not, one of the best on the grid, let's be honest. And Zhou was over a second slower than Bottas in qualifying, which is simply not good enough. Yeah, Alfa Romeo, good opportunity today. Let's see what they can do. And also, a good opportunity today for Haas F1. Kevin Magnussen, starting on the fourth row of the grid in 8th place. What a qualifying he had. And I do wonder, with the higher downforce setup they've gone for, whether maybe that will lessen their race pace issues. Probably not, but let's see. And I think from the data we saw, it is pretty clear to see that Haas were running with quite a bit more downforce than the other teams. So quick in the first and second sector. But yeah, ultimately, I don't think Haas will have the pace to finish in the points. But as long as Magnussen comes home and gets like a top 12, top 13 finish, then I think that would be, in terms of his own personal performance, a good enough drive. Because, the issues with the Haas car in the race has nothing to do with the drivers, as we know. But those guys are my thoughts on all of the teams coming into this race today, which is just under 1 hour away. And yep, Nib, I am going to bring you on, and I'm just going to get doing that now. So, yeah, keep your comments coming, because I will get to some of them before lights out. But as you can see, Nib wants to come on, so I'll just get this set up quickly, and I'll have him on in just a few seconds. A couple things ahead, and get Discord open as well, and right, let me just, here we go. Right, hello, are you there?
Hello. How are we doing?
Better. How are you?
Yeah, doing all right. I am a little bit tired, I must say, because my schedule is all over the place because of the tennis. But yeah, doing all right.
Are you looking forward to this race today with the grid we've got?
With the grid we've got, yes. If you didn't add in that part, I would have said no. Um, but yeah, I mean, I just got to say, this Sky coverage. What on earth are they doing? It's
I,
so terrible. Thank Christ we've got Jenson Button, who is just the absolute legend that he is, and just a normal man. Um, and also the man that wants to is absolutely sick and tired of Danica Patrick.
yeah, I saw that little screenshot yesterday. Did you see the Sky F1 intro they just did? Um,
Uh,
it was they had what was it, Jared Leto doing the narration.
oh, okay. No, I didn't. I was watching. I was in the chat. I wasn't watching it.
It was a proper long intro. It was like 5 minutes long. I was like, bloody hell, this is not. They're making it out to be like the biggest race of all time. And Lazenby in his diamond jacket looks, quite cringe. As well, what do you make of this uh cement thing on the track? It
Oh,
sums the weekend up, doesn't it?
yeah. Well, I've seen conflicting reports on whose actual classic car it was. Some I've seen some saying it was Piastri's, some were saying it was Hamilton's. Um, but I mean, the grip was already going to be bad on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Well, with this, my goodness, it certainly doesn't help things, and, and Max is going to be fuming.
Yeah. Especially if he has one of those starts where he loses a few positions. We'll see what happens with that as well. It is I think it, again, I said this on Thursday, and especially with the run into turn one, it's very similar track to Baku because we have such a short run into turn one. So yeah, we'll see what happens at the first couple corners.
Well,
Um,
I tell you something right now. Hopefully, it isn't the same as the first year of Baku, which was probably one of the worst Grand Prix that I can ever remember.
yeah, well, I mean, we know in Baku that, let's be honest, we have to have a safety car for it to be good, and that's my fear with this race is that if it's a full green flag race, that it's gonna basically turn out to be like that race where nothing really happens, and the overtaking we do get is just really easy down that back straight, which again, that back straight, very similar to the main straight in Baku. So yeah, fingers crossed that I'm just being a bit too pessimistic, but we'll see. Talking of this whole Grand Prix event though, what a shit show of a weekend it has been on the track, but even more off the track with what happened in practice one. Obviously, Sainz hitting the manhole cover, and then everything that happened after that. Where do you want to start with all that's happened?
Oh well, I was really wanting you to hurry up before because they're having the fucking circus on the grid, and I'm like, that's what this weekend has been.
Yeah,
Um, as actually we got asked in the chat before, I've been told to say this. We, uh, where were we? Where were we? Nicholas asked, well, what does the Las Vegas track remind you of? And I said, what comes out of my bum, because it is utter fucking shit.
yeah,
I mean, Max Verstappen has said it all for I think you and I
yeah,
this weekend. It's just a terrible circuit, and there's no grip for the drivers already on a cold track. It's just terrible.
yeah. It's I think the worst thing for me, it's not necessarily like the low grip or the track temperature. For me, it's the track has no real flow to it. And it just, and I know people must say, oh, they're racing around Las Vegas. How unique and brilliant is that? But when you watch the cars on track, you can't really tell that much that we're racing in Vegas. It's not really massively unique in that way. It's not like in Baku where you have the castle section, which is an incredibly unique part of the track, even though that middle sector in Baku is very pedestrian. This track just doesn't have any character to it whatsoever. And it, as Max has said, it's a terrible track. If you look at all of the tracks on the calendar, this is arguably the worst, would we say? I'm not sure what would be worse than this one. Yeah, I don't. I'm not sure there is a worse track than this one. So yeah. Well, if
Yeah.
the Sochi track was still on the calendar, maybe you could say that. But even that track, I would say, was better because even that, at least on a low fuel, would have a decent flow to it. But again, this track, it's just all over the place, and it's purely been designed, especially with the high speed parts in the second half of the lap, purely been designed for overtaking. Not it's not been designed to be a good racing track. When normally, if you look at the Grand Prix that produce good racing, their tracks, they're not designed deliberately to produce good racing. They're just designed to be the best type of racing track they can be and have a good flow to it, and then they just tend to be good races. Yeah, I really don't like this track. I don't think. I mean, I know it's obviously different, but driving this track on the F1 game, there was not one corner I liked. Um, just not a proper
Oh,
racetrack.
the long right hander after the first corners was probably the best part about this track.
Yeah,
And actually, in real life, the last corner is actually pretty good. But apart from that, yeah, it's just no good. And as Laurie's actually saying in the chat, like Miami, is actually a nice track to drive. Like even though it's got that terrible middle sector part with with that chicane, that
yeah.
terrible bumpy chicane, like the first sector is actually really nice to drive.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, and that's one of the issues, right? Because FOM are so terrible with their camera setups, right? You actually can barely tell for most of the time that we're actually racing in Vegas, and we know how bad the we know how bad the camera direction's already going to be today. We're going to be looking at freaking the MGM Grand or something,
Yeah.
and then we're going to miss an overtake.
Celebrities as
One of
well.
about one of 18 overtakes that we're going to have. And yeah, I mean that is one thing that they've got to look. I mean, there's just no sense of speed from the cameras that they use. It's really bad, and I think that I mean in MotoGP you even get a higher sense of speed than what you do whilst you're watching F1. I mean, you see from some of the videos from Macau from this weekend, there's just you can't. There's no sense of speed watching these cameras, and I think that's something that they've got to do a bit of a better job at, just to show how fast these cars are actually really going.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There was one camera angle they used to have back in the 2000s where they'd put a camera like on like a bridge or something, and as the cars would pass underneath, that would really give you that like that sense of speed. I think they used to do it at Melbourne. Uh, right before turn one, there'd be a camera where the cars would
Camera
go
in the track,
underneath. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, that like that type of camera angle. It's a great type of angle to make people feel just how mentally quick these cars are when they are flat out. But yeah, I mean, the only thing really from the track that you can tell that we're racing in Vegas is the Las Vegas Sphere, but the Las Vegas Sphere is only just popped up in the last year. It's not like it's been around for 50 years. So yeah, and it is a great site, by the way. It is an unbelievable piece of engineering. And that's probably the only good-looking part of the track on TV, I would say. So yeah, that's the track. In terms of though the controversy with practice one, let's start with in terms of the reaction to it because we kind of got into it at the time. Let's start with Toto Wolff and what he had to say in the team principal press conference in between practice one and practice two. I obviously went through the comments on Friday night. I shared my thoughts on them. I think I said it was arrogant, selfish, all of that, and pretty much everyone has bashed him for it. Yeah, what are your overall thoughts on what he had to say?
Well, I mean, we shared it. We spoke about it privately a bit for sure.
Yeah,
But I mean, it wasn't Toto Wolff, the Mercedes team principal speaking. It was Toto Wolff, the Mercedes owner, or third owner. Is he?
yeah,
Yeah,
something like
part
that.
third owner. Yeah, that was that Toto Wolff speaking. It wasn't Toto Wolff of if that happened to his team. I mean, Verstappen said it. If that happened to Hamilton or to Russell, the reaction would be totally different. Oh, we've got to respect what a great job they did to get all this ready. Yeah, that's why Carlos Sainz, could have been seriously injured by a drain cover. Well, it's not drain cover; it was a valve. It was a valve cover for
Yeah,
these fire hydrant valves that they've got down the strip. that come loose. I mean, it was just so arrogant. And I mean, his comments certainly didn't age well throughout the rest of the day, did they? I mean, obviously
No.
they were after FP1, but they did not age well at all. Especially what happened then in FP2, where there was, of course, no fans. It was like we're back in COVID times. Um, it almost reminded me of when I you would have remembered this when Taylor Fritz and Novak Djokovic were playing at the
Oh yeah,
Australian
yeah.
Open,
I remember.
and they kicked that and they had to kick the fans out
Yeah,
halfway through because of COVID restrictions. Um, yeah, it was pretty ridiculous, and of course, there's going to be legal action uh, taken against F1 and the race organisers, which is no surprise whatsoever because, I mean, it's just pretty despicable. And the fact that, oh, yeah, here's your $200 gift card that you can have, it's just a joke. And, I mean, Verstappen once again hit the nail on the head that he'd rip the place down if that's what they've got in response. And, yeah, I mean, Toto Wolff is just a prick.
absolutely. As you said, it was him, the Mercedes part owner, talking, and I think the worst part of the comment was the very end of it, where he said nobody in European time watches that anyway. Where that was him saying the quiet part out loud, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
other people I know said that as well because they don't want to admit it. And we've kind of had this feeling for a while, but their total focus really is on the American audience. I don't think, because they know obviously the European audience is always kind of going to be there. They don't care about the European audience anymore because they know they can make a lot more money in America. And obviously because how big America is and there's so many, different tracks and also cities, there's a possibility of having more and more races in America. So yeah, it was he let the mask slip in that press conference, no doubt about it. And hopefully he will not quite be as arrogant and as blatant with his comments in the future. And as you were saying, that whole fan voucher thing is absolute rubbish. And as Nib was saying, if you guys don't know, yeah, the fans that basically all the fans that attended the action in practice one are now being represented by 5 people who have now filed a lawsuit against, Formula One and the Las Vegas Grand Prix organizers. So we'll see, what the result of that is. I remember I did share with you privately that in terms of them, Liberty Media, F1, and the organizers not apologizing, that was them trying to cover their own arse, because if they legally, I'm guessing, if you apologize, then it can make a legal case worse for them. Just shows you though what their priorities are, um, when they should be doing the right thing, and continuously when it comes to doing the right thing, they do the opposite. They do whatever makes them more money. So disappointing overall, but it's not really a surprise with Liberty. I mean, we kind of felt that they were this way anyway, and we kind of knew, uh, that in reality this is how Formula One is now. But I think after this weekend, I think now that people truly know just where the sport is and where it is heading, probably in a negative direction. I hope it's not, because I want Formula One to, to be great and to succeed, but I'm not very confident in the direction of Formula One right now. But let's get into the what's happened on the circuit this weekend. Um, and sorry, I just saw a comment from Yanni, and I was actually going to say this earlier. Americans love to sue. Do it, yeah. Americans do love a lawsuit. Yeah, in qualifying, it was obviously very mixed up. Unbelievable pace from Ferrari. Red Bull not too quick at all, as although an Alpine driver complaining about too many sparks down the back straight on their way to the grid. Yeah, Ferrari unbelievably quick, and unfortunately, though, Nib, Carlos Sainz has his 10th place penalty, which really screws up Ferrari's race. Because as I said earlier, I think if Sainz was starting on the front row, I think Ferrari, as long as they got away in those positions, I think Ferrari would probably win this race today. But coming into this race today, I just think it's a matter of time until Max Verstappen gets into lead and wins. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's start off with Sainz's bullshit penalty.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. What an absolute joke that is. I mean, so unfair for Sainz, and I really hope he can get a podium today, because I mean that would be some form of justice for what he's going to have to go through and what he has had to go through this weekend. I mean, it's just unbelievable that there's nothing in the rules that they can sort of do to ensure that he doesn't get a penalty for, a loose drain cover, completely ripping apart his car to the point where you could actually see the track through his cockpit. Just mind-boggling, really. But yeah, I'm not too sure, honestly, because I think this it all comes down to the start, honestly. I mean, if Verstappen doesn't get a good start, I think it really could be trouble. Because this first sector is all very tight and congested and twisty, and there could be some contact. And I mean, we have drivers up there who usually aren't there, so I am a little bit worried that there might be some contact in the early stages of the race, and more than what we usually see up the front. So I'm not so sure if it is a matter of the time. If this was a more normal race circuit, I'm like, yeah, of course, Ferrari's tyre wear will be terrible. But I don't think Max will get into the lead as soon as perhaps we may think. I think it might be more towards in the second half of the race that Max gets into the lead, because I think he is going to fall behind and probably be in about fourth at the end of the first lap.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible with him starting on the the dirty side of the grid. And as you say, those first few corners are going to be very tricky with the cold track conditions, plus not a lot of grip out there anyway. And as you were saying as well, we do have a couple drivers that are a bit higher up than normal. Definitely, Logan Sargent, a bit further back, Kevin Magnussen, who's normally been outside of the top 10 every weekend, except for like 2 or 3 here or there. So contact is definitely possible on the first lap. Hopefully, it's just not takes cars off or anything like that ruins the race. But I think with Verstappen, I think as long as he maintains second place, even if it is not a very comfortable, let's say, first lap, as long as he can maintain second place, then I think he will at some point, probably in the first stint. No, I think earlier I said between lap 15 and 25. I think probably then we'll get the move done. With talking of some of those drivers starting a bit higher up than usual, we've got Gasly fourth, Albon fifth, Sargent sixth, and then Bottas seventh, Magnussen eighth. Out from qualifying, I mean Logan Sargent obviously very impressive, but who else would you say you were very impressed with out of that pack of drivers qualifying so high?
Yeah, I mean it's got to be Sargent. I mean, he has performed really, really well at these sort of high speed tracks all season long, and he's done it once again. So very, very impressive by Logan Sargent. Of course, great by Albon, but it's sort of expected almost by Albon at this stage to put in these great qualifying performances because, of course, the Williams can put in these good performances in qualifying, but of course, good performance by Gasly as well, but also by Russell. I mean, we can see just how difficult this Mercedes is to set up with Hamilton's qualifying performance. So George has done a very good job this weekend, and he needed to have a bit of a bounce back because he's been pretty poor the second half of the season, hasn't he? So I thought it was quite an important qualifying session by George Russell. Now he needs to probably have a good race here today, but um, yeah, I mean just super impressed by the Williams, and as you were saying earlier, I do think they can get a double points finish today.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday, even in practice, they were, with both cars, super quick. And as well with Albon, another reason why that qualifier was impressive is at the end of practice three, he ended up hitting the wall and his tyre ended up falling off. So he came back quite well from that to then, put it up such a high position in qualifying. As well, yeah, with Russell, brilliant lap. I am amazed though, because earlier I was thinking, when has Russell's last podium been? And yeah, I think the last podium Russell had was in Spain, which was, I mean, that feels about a year ago
Yeah, that's
already.
correct.
Yeah, that is incredible to think I think he's only had one podium this season, which is that one in Spain.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know why. Maybe it's because in 2022 he had quite a few podiums, but I'm just amazed at that. And
Well, his last podium before Barcelona was when he won the Brazilian Grand Prix.
yeah, yeah, it's been. I mean, that just shows how poor of a season it's been because Hamilton's been on the podium a few times. And Mercedes, obviously, second in the championship, mostly because of Lewis Hamilton, to be honest. Russell down in, I think, eighth in the championship, is he? Yeah, I think he is eighth in the championship. So, yeah, it just shows how poor of a season he's had. And then further down the field, we have Alonso in ninth, Hamilton in 10th. Then you got Perez 11th, Sainz 12th, Norris down in 16th, Oscar Piastri in 19th. Obviously, Perez and Sainz we know are going to make progress because they've got the two fastest cars on the grid. But with Hamilton, Norris and Piastri, let's say, what do you expect them to do? Because their cars are not quite as quick, and also, I mean, with Hamilton, definitely not had a great weekend. So yeah, what do you think those three can do?
I'm not looking forward to this race as an Oscar Piastri fan, that's for sure. I mean, the McLaren is not set up well for this Grand Prix. I
No.
don't, I don't, I don't think it's going to be a very good day for McLaren. I mean, Norris might sneak some points. I mean, he's just driving so well at the moment. He can probably do that, but I'm not too sure about Oscar. I mean, he's not been great in the races as of late, so yeah, I probably think that probably continue on today. Perez, that's very unfortunate for Perez. I mean, it's the second time that Red Bull have made that mistake with him this season now.
Yeah, I think they may have done it in sometime in the European season.
Yeah, so it's rare for Red Bull to make those mistakes. Although I do remember them doing it to Webber at least 3 or 4 times during 2010 to 2013. I will never forget. I think it was China. China 2011, where they end up finishing third. Started 18th and finished third.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So yeah, Red Bull can do it to their second drivers. I'm not suggesting any nonsense like some people would believe though. Um, but But yeah, I just unfortunate for Perez because I mean he's been pretty good over the over the last few races, so you'd probably expect him to probably get on the podium, wouldn't you?
Well, I've predicted Russell to get third, but I do have Perez only like a few seconds behind, so it depends
Yeah,
really how quickly he gets through that midfield pack. He needs to be, really getting them, once every couple laps or something.
depends on safety cars as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be quite interesting.
As Martin Brundle has just started his grid walk, which is probably going to be hell for him. And
I
I'll
was
let
about to say, just talk to Jackie. Oh,
yeah,
the Moustache Man is back.
yeah, Chase Carey, good to see him. As Martin is just looking for someone to talk to.
We have
Um,
Chase Carey back.
as what was I going to say? Yeah, with McLaren, yeah, the setup they've got absolutely wrong. Their top speed back to how it was really in the first half of the season. So yeah, McLaren, unless they have a quite a lot of luck or their strategy really pays off, they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna score points today, probably because I just don't think their car's really quick enough, unfortunately. But it should be. I mean, it's not going to be a 1 out of 10 race because of the way the grid is. We're going to get overtaking today. We will see, obviously, how good it ends up being. But Nib, for your top five, who are you going for this race?
I'm going to go with Verstappen to win the Grand Prix, with Leclerc in second, Perez in third, Russell in fourth. It would be boring to put Sainz in fifth, wouldn't it? Um,
Only place you can see him finishing, though.
yeah, let's go. Let's go with him in fifth.
Yeah. Um.
That's a bit boring though.
Yeah.
Ah,
I mean, if we get a safety car in the last 20 laps, then really you'd expect him to be probably then getting onto the podium. So, we'll see what happens with that. And as I've said before, when it comes to other street circuit races, safety cars do happen a lot, and if you can capitalize on particular safety cars, when they're deployed, it can really turn your race into something special. We've seen it many times in the past at other street circuits, but whether this Grand Prix today will see a safety car actually affect the race or even a safety car at all, of course, we will find that out in about 25 minutes from now. Let me know, guys, in the live chat, what are your predictions for the race? What is your top three for today's race? Let me know in the live chat and I'll read out some of your predictions before we get to the start of this race as Martin is just battling his way through the grid. And yeah, he's desperately looking for people to talk to. But and as well, I do have that poll running at the top of the live chat. So if you haven't voted on that yet, make sure to do so. Who do you think will win the Las Vegas Grand Prix? There's 4 options for you there. Let me know who you think will win. And as well, we are on 89 likes. So let's try and by the time the race gets underway, let's try and get up to 100 likes if we can. So if you haven't hit the like button yet, make sure to do so. Keith was saying Verstappen, Leclerc, Russell for the top 3. Let's find some other comments there if I can. Roll up a bit. Laurie Rastogi saying, I'm more of a mutual fan of the sport, but if I have to choose a driver to support, it would be Alonso. I started watching F1 when Button won his '09 title, and I enjoyed the races he won, such as Canada 2011. Laurie also saying driving the track on the F1 game is awful, no flow. Exactly. One thing I did find in the F1 game, and it's not going to be the same in real life, but if you put on a low drag setup, you are basically like God at that track. It doesn't matter how slow you are in the first half of the lap. If you have the lowest wings possible, you could overtake like 2 or 3 cars possibly on that back straight. It's incredible. And as well on on the F1 game, I think the undercut was absolutely massive, if I remember, around this track. I mean, it's pretty big anyway on that game around every track, but yeah, we'll see if it's that easy to overtake down the back straight. Because I remember on the F1 game when I did some races on it, with the AI, it'd be like 3 wide sometimes going into that final chicane. But we'll see just how many cars we get side by side.
Yeah, I must say, even though I do have a pretty reasonable time at this track, I'm like, I think 1,200th in the world or something like that around the track. It's just terrible. It's
Yeah.
terrible. It's shite.
It's not a track that anyone, would actually, if they had the choice, it's not a track that you would deliberately go out of your way to select. I mean,
Correct. It was literally just because we've got the race coming up today.
yeah. I mean, the only time I ever play the track is when it comes up on career mode. So,
Yeah.
I
Brundle is
track.
losing his mind, by the way, because there are no drivers on the grid.
Yeah, I've not seen any drivers. There's loads of celebrities. He's not really been able to find that many celebrities. Gonna try now and talk to Zlatan. Was he? No, I don't think he is. Bypassed him.
Steve Aoki and Zlatan, yeah.
Gonna talk to Fred instead.
That's much better choice. Did you see Infantino there before as well? Before?
Uh, really?
Yeah, Infantino was on the grid.
Oh wow. And yeah, Martin just interviewing the Ferrari team boss, who has been very unhappy this week, and rightfully so. And I did see a few hours ago, it was revealed the price of the damages of that accident that Carlos had on in practice 1. Did you see it, Nib?
I didn't actually know.
It was $1.5 million worth of damage. Just that incident. So rightfully
Ridiculous.
so. And obviously, probably, they're not gonna be helped with that payment. So yeah, absolutely ridiculous. Fucking find some more predictions. Shop says
He's got
Verstappen.
Zlatan.
Yeah, he's now got him. As they still can't find any drivers, unfortunately. Shop says Verstappen, Sainz, Russell, Leclerc crash or mechanical. Laurie says same top 3 as you, Chaz. Unless Mercedes' race pace is worse than expected. Prank says Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas. Say Regara says Leclerc, Russell, Gasly. I hope, lol. Yanni says Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, but Sergeant P3 would be cool. That would be, be great. Let me see if I can find any other predictions, and I don't think I can at the moment. I don't know if you saw this as well, but there is no driver cooldown room.
Yeah, I did say that.
Which very coincidental, I think, at this race, given a certain driver that always is in the cooldown room. I think absolutely they could have had a cooldown room here. I think the plan is they're going to be took to the Bellagio hotel for the driver interviews, and then they're going to be took back to the grid for the podium. That's what I've seen floating around online. As
Yeah, not too keen to hear the podcast this weekend, are they?
no, as some work going on to the rear wing of Red Bull there that they just showed from the rear-facing camera of the Red Bull, and it Max Verstappen's car.
Yeah, that's on Max's car.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anything massive, just a small little thing. Martin battling his way through to see what's going on. As there, there is someone good for Martin to interview if he can get a word with him. Jack on the grid, great to see him standing next to Max's car. As for predictions in chat, Laurie says, do you think they should do the interviews on the podium like the old days? I prefer the way they do it now. I didn't like the interviews on the podium. I prefer on the podium them being just allowed to, say what they want with no one hearing, and just spray the champagne and just do all of that stuff. I didn't like the driver interviews on the podium. So yeah, and as well, they tend to get through the driver interviews quicker with the way they do it now. Because a lot of the time, the drivers, what they're saying, those post-race interviews when they've got out of the car is, the usual stuff that you would expect.
The guy from Red Bull tried to sort Martin out, but Shaq just said, nah, screw you, Martin.
As Martin now battling his way forward again. And yeah, oh, I would absolutely hate to be on that grid. It looks like my worst nightmare, really. I mean, everything at this Grand Prix looks like my worst nightmare, but this especially. Look at that. You'll see it. Oh, that's great by Martin. Oh, that's great.
Oh, he's got a photobomb, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh, he's so great.
Oh dear.
Right, let me try and find a couple more comments if I can. Tyler asking, new here and new to F1 actually, but my question is, do you guys show the race live or leaderboards? How does this work? We can't obviously show the race live because we'd be took down, copyright, all of that within a second. So what we do is we will show pictures on screen. I'll have a leaderboard which I'll update constantly with a lap counter that I update, as we go along. And we basically do like a radio style commentary, obviously taking you through live what's happening in the Grand Prix of Las Vegas. And we are, just 16 minutes away from lights out. But it's been a very weird and wonderful event. Another weird thing that happened, which I think you may have seen, Nib, was Jacques Villeneuve getting married in the paddock on Thursday.
Dude, I was gonna talk about this on the Friday practice stream.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got a little bit sidetracked because of what happened, of course. But it's just the most Jacques Villeneuve thing of all time, isn't it? Like, of course, this absolute muppet would get married in the freaking paddock.
The thing that's funny about it, though, to me, is like, I did not hear one person even talk about like this happening, and then suddenly I saw pictures of, oh look, Jacques Villeneuve is getting married in the paddock. It was like such a surprise thing. I think even the journalists there were like, what the fuck? What is happening? Oh, it was so weird. Jacques, obviously, the reason he's always in the paddock is because, what do you call it? He works for, I can't remember which station it is. Canal Plus, I think it
Yeah.
might be.
He was doing stuff for actual F1
Yeah.
this weekend.
Martin having a quick word with Lando Norris now, after having a quick word with Kylie Minogue, as Shaq making his way to the front of the grid. And as someone took a grid penalty, there's another person, because they just showed on the screen that Lando is now 15th and Piastri is 18th. So
There's been nothing from the journalists.
why they yeah, the national anthem is about to play at the track. Thankfully, drivers, they'll be able to get in their cars and get on with what they actually like doing. Laurie saying, I couldn't stand standing on grid with that crowd alone, a clusterfuck.
Yeah, I'm sure Martin was quite relieved to be able to get past the barrier security and get rescued by Jensen, Kylie Minogue, and Lando.
Thankfully for Martin, he won't have to go through an experience like that again for another few months. Anytime, basically, we come to an American race, having to battle to interview. Well, yeah. Let's keep reading some of your comments before. Laurie in the chat is saying Stroll has taken a grid penalty for ignoring yellow flags. I don't know if that's a penalty relating to qualifying that's been lately applied. I don't know. Yeah. Let me.
No further action on Stroll from like last night. No, there's been no penalties.
Oh, right. Well, I've just looked on the BBC website, and on their starting grid, it says Stroll starting 19th. So he must have some sort of something penalty. So I have
Does he
no
have
idea.
anything from last week?
No, because in Brazil he finished 5th, and he didn't really do anything. I have no idea.
No, Stroll hasn't.
I'm trying to think.
I mean, it is.
Unless Sonoda's starting from the pit lane and Stroll, and then they've decided to take like a
Oh,
new
he got
IC
penalised
and...
in FP3, I think, for overtaking under yellow flags.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
never...
why Stroll is 19th.
Right. I never saw anything about that. Right, so Stroll, 19th on the grid.
Oh.
That's
I always forget about how you Brits all know about Kylie Minogue because of bloody Neighbours, because it's so weird.
as the driver's now thankfully getting ready. And I don't know why, I just thought it was hilarious that she was one of the acts for that opening ceremony on well, it would have been Wednesday night in Vegas. I don't know why, I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, odd.
As right, so I think what we'll do is go through a final few comments, and then we'll get on to the last couple things before lights out. Let's see. Quick. Sarah Gar saying, we now have to do our shows in the US, lol. Yeah, it does turn out that Stroll was given a penalty, which, I mean, won't really make a difference to his race because he's not going to finish in the points anyway. But yeah, as of course this race starting in 10 minutes' time. And local time, it is about 10 o'clock at night. So, find comments here. Yanni's saying, I think Hamilton will finish outside of the points. That's quite an ambitious prediction. And find Gravel says it in the chat, if the Williams make it through at the start without incident, I don't see Perez making it through. I mean, those Williams cars obviously are going to be hard to overtake, but you'd think the Red Bull would be fast enough through the earlier part of the lap to then overtake. But we have seen with Albon a lot of times in the last couple of years that he is, with the straight line speed that Williams has, he's incredibly good at defending his position. Will saying Albon is chuffed, and also Laurie earlier saying, all right, thanks for the Chaz. Thought that was more of a trick on F1 2022, low wings. I have noticed on the F1 game that this F1 game, that lower wings is more powerful as long as it's not too low at certain tracks. But yeah, it is, makes more of a difference, let's say, on the F1 23 game compared to the F1 22 game. So yeah, I think with about 8 minutes to go until the race gets underway, let me finish up the poll in the live chat, where I asked you guys, who do you think will win the 2023 Las Vegas Grand Prix? Just over 400 votes in the poll, and you guys, with 58% of the vote, have voted for Max Verstappen. 30% of the vote has gone to Charles Leclerc, 6% of the vote to George Russell, and 5% of the vote to Carlos Sainz. And yeah, we agree. Verstappen, we think, will win, but let's see whether that actually will turn out to be the case. And fingers crossed, we can get at least an interesting race, even if it's not, a ton of overtaking. If it's at least an interesting competitive race throughout, then that would at least help for what's going to be an interesting first ever Grand Prix in Vegas. Of course, with the track surface being a lower grip surface, and obviously the track temperatures being quite a bit cooler than you normally have for an F1 Grand Prix, it really could make things a lot more interesting than maybe usual. Because, if you compare it to Brazil a couple of weeks ago, I think the track temperature there was well into the 40 degrees Celsius range. And here, it's about, 30 degrees Celsius cooler, the track temperature. So, we will see the challenges that presents. But, let me see if there's a couple more comments from you guys in the chat I can quickly read out. And I think, by the way, Nib, I think they're playing that Jared Leto intro.
I'm just going through Twitter, reading stuff that Brundle said. After Shaq, so Shaq did say some words. He said, Lewis Hamilton, baby, and then walked off. And then Brundle was contemplating how he's gonna have no job after this. The Brundle saying, how did all these people get grid passes? That's a good question. A ridiculous amount of people on the grid. Yeah. Hilarious.
Thankfully, Martin did quite a bit better than I was expecting. It was definitely better than the last couple American ones where there was some controversies. But Hopper Woody says, with the crazy lineup on the grid, there will definitely be some craziness in the first lap or two. Laurie Rastogi saying, judging by Gasly's form recently, it seems like he was demotivated last year. Possibly. But yeah, one thing I do need to do quickly that I forgot to do about 20 minutes ago is just post a link of the stream again. My community tab. Quickly do it. Come join us here to Watchalong, the first ever Vegas Grand Prix. And right, let's now get into a couple final things before lights out here in Vegas. And we'll start with the championship standings. Max Verstappen, of course, already the champion. Sergio Perez, 32 points clear of Lewis Hamilton. As long as Perez beats Hamilton today, then pretty much the fight for second is over. Alonso in fourth, only 3 points clear of Norris in fifth, who's only 3 points clear of Sainz in sixth. Leclerc then seventh. Russell 8th, Piastri 9th, and Lance Stroll in 10th, but only 1 point ahead of Pierre Gasly. And then in the constructors' standings, Red Bull champions, of course, and 400 points clear of Mercedes. Mercedes, though, only 20 points clear of Ferrari. That battle still raging on, and Ferrari need a big result today if they're going to get second by the end of the season, which, of course, ends next Sunday. McLaren in fourth, only 21 points clear of Aston Martin. They've got to hope that Aston Martin don't have a big point-scoring day. Alpine are in sixth. Williams in seventh, only 7 points clear of AlphaTauri. Big day for Williams, and if they can have a big day today, then surely they will secure seventh in the championship. And then you have AlphaTauri eighth, Alfa Romeo ninth, and Haas last in the standings. But let's now get into your starting grid for the first ever Las Vegas Grand Prix. On the front row, it is Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. On the second row, it is George Russell and Pierre Gasly. On the third row, an all-Williams third row of Alexander Albon and Logan Sargent. On the fourth row, all Scandinavian, Valtteri Bottas and Kevin Magnussen. And completing the top 10, the ex-teammates from 16 years ago, Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. Just outside the top 10, Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz taking his farcical 10-place grid penalty. Nico Hülkenberg 13th, and in 14th it was going to be Lance Stroll, but it is now Daniel Ricciardo. And then in 15th it will be Lando Norris. In 16th it will be Esteban Ocon, and then in 17th it will be Zhou Guanyu with Oscar Piastri 18th. Lance Stroll will start in 19th, and Yuki Tsunoda will start at the very back of the grid. But let's now get into this Grand Prix. Let me just get rid of that tyre data because we don't know officially who is on what compound, and I'll just relegate Stroll down to 19th. Yeah, 50 lap race. And let's hope for a good one. Drivers will be starting the formation lap in about a minute from now. And as Britt says in the chat, this will either be the best race of the year or the worst. Probably. We're looking at Pierre Gasly starting from fourth. There on the grid, Lewis Hamilton starting in 10th. He needs desperately a much better day today. Carlos Sainz starting in 12th. Surely will make big progress from there in one of the fastest cars on the grid this weekend. Just moments away now from the formation lap beginning. And Leclerc is on the medium compound tyre. Looks like basically everybody is on the medium compound tyre, which is the tyre that Pirelli said would be the best to start on. And we've got Tsunoda there at the back on the soft compound tyre. Not a surprise because, he's got nothing to lose. As Tsunoda, who's had a dreadful weekend. And formation lap has now begun, and hopefully Verstappen has laid some rubber down on this side of the grid, as Lewis Hamilton is starting on the hard compound tyre, interestingly. Also, we've got Piastri and Zhou on the hard tyre, and Lance Stroll in 19th is also on the soft. So let me just update that, and I'll just get it displayed on screen quickly so I can get Hamilton updated. And there you go. So those are the starting compounds. Everybody on the medium except for Hamilton and Zhou and Piastri, who are on the hard tyre, and then Stroll and Tsunoda on the soft. As on this formation lap, they're about halfway through so far. The fans, thankfully, packed in the grandstands. As Leclerc racing around on the formation lap and going pretty quickly, I have to say, on this formation lap. Wanting to get on with it. Now come on to the back straight, where, of course, that incident in practice 1 happened with Carlos Sainz. And that is where the overtaking today really is going to be done, is it down that back straight. And if it's not done there, then God help us all. The top few cars just coming into the final chicane. We are about probably a minute away from the start of this race. Top 8 just coming through the exit of the chicane. There is Jack Doohan in the Alpine garage. Of course, he's the reserve driver for the team. And Leclerc and Verstappen just coming on to now the starting grid, which, by the way, has a curve to it, which is quite unique compared to a lot of, obviously, tracks we race at. Kind of similar to the old starting grid at Spa, if anyone remembers that, before the track changes. Probably the only thing I like about this track, as Leclerc now lines up on pole with Verstappen second and kind of pointing his car towards the middle as the top half of the field now lining up. Carlos Sainz just coming through the last corner to get lined up as well. And let's hope that we'll get through the first few corners without any accidents, but it looks like it's probably likely to happen. The grid almost lined up. Now, here comes Yuki Tsunoda to line up in last place. And after what's been a controversial weekend, let's finally get racing in Las Vegas as the green flag waves and the lights are on. It's 3, 4, 5 lights. And it's go in Vegas, and Max Verstappen has actually got a very good start and goes for the inside line on Leclerc. Dive bombs his way and pushes. They both go off at turn 1, and oh, there's loads of accidents in the background. Alonso, Sainz has spun as well. Don't think there's been actual crashes, but it looks like there has been a couple drivers tagged, and that is a messy start. But Verstappen does lead from Leclerc. Russell is third and Gasly still in fourth, and Williams in fifth of Alex Albon. Magnussen has started well. He is in sixth. But yeah, a couple drivers being spun around at the first corner, but it is now green flag, so thankfully we're not going to get any sort of safety car. As we've got a McLaren there of Piastri, I think it is, side by side, I think with Nico Hulkenberg through turn 8 and 9 as they now come to the higher speed part of the track. And Verstappen already pulling away very quickly from Leclerc as Sargent right up behind Magnussen. And I think that's Esteban Ocon up in the top 10 already. What a start from Ocon, if that is him. As Alonso says, I've got damage, as here comes Logan Sargent to overtake Kevin Magnussen, and he does, and goes up to 6th. And yes, it is. It's Ocon who's up from 16th to 8th. What a start. Lance Stroll, 19th up to 9th. Amazing starts for them. Perez is in 10th. And then you've got Nico Hulkenberg in 11th. And on lap 2, we now have a virtual safety car, probably to clear away a slight bit of debris at the first corner. So, yeah, your top 10 is correct. And then you've got Hulkenberg 11th. Tsunoda in 12th as Perez comes in. Don't know if he, clearly had damage as he's going for a new front wing. So that puts Hulkenberg.
You'll see on the replay, Chaz, it's a miracle that Alonso didn't take out half the field.
Right. As I'm sure we'll see a replay in a moment. Piastri's had a very good start. He's up to 12th place now with Sergio Perez's pit stop. Lando Norris is 13th as Alonso pits. Lewis Hamilton, poor start. He's in 14th. Ricciardo is in 15th. And then you've got Zhou in 16th with Sainz in 17th. Perez 18th. Alonso 19th and Bottas in 20th. And here is a replay of the start, Nib. I'll let you take us through it once they get to it.
Yeah, when I do eventually get to it in about 25 seconds, that's an exaggeration. But yeah, Alonso just completely outbroke himself. And it was honestly a miracle that he didn't take out half of the cars in front of him. He somehow managed to spin it, and only, I think, then a car went in front of him there. He should have completely taken out Ocon and one of the what was the other cars? One of the Williams cars. So I'm not used to them being that far up, but yeah, it was, and then just contact with an Alfa Romeo. But I mean, there's just no grip on this shit track.
And there's a replay of Verstappen and Leclerc, and virtual safety car now ending. I don't think, by the way, for anyone thinking, I don't think Max Verstappen is going to get any sort of penalty for what happened with Leclerc at the start, because they both went off the track. As, let me just actually update, Verstappen is in the lead. So it's Verstappen leading from Leclerc 2nd, Russell 3rd, Gasly 4th, Albon 5th, Sargent 6th, Magnussen 7th, Ocon 8th, Stroll 9th, Hulkenberg 10th. And then the rest of the order is out settling down. Let me just update, though, that Lance Stroll we've got on the soft compound tyre. Also, Yuki Tsunoda on the soft. Piastri on the hard. Hamilton on the hard. And then Zhou on the hard compound tyre as well. Carlos Sainz did not pit. He's still out there on the mediums. And then the bottom three, Perez, Alonso, and Bottas, have pitted. And they are all on the hard compound tyre. On lap 3 out of 50 as Lance Stroll looks very quick. As, what happened there? A car just hit one of the cameras. And it's Norris. What's happened? Has he collided with someone, or has he had a brake failure? That car does look pretty smashed up. And full safety car has been deployed. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if he turned in from too wide of an angle and hit the wall.
One of the Alpines sparked really heavily just in the braking zone before there, Chaz.
Right.
Yeah, there's a really bad bump before that braking zone. I wonder if something happened with Norris's car over that bump.
Yeah, very badly damaged car. One of his tyres has fallen off, and his car quite badly damaged. He has said he's okay, thankfully. But we have a full safety car now on lap 4 as Lance Stroll pitting. This is great for Stroll. You can now get rid of the soft compound tyre, which is the unfavourable tyre, really, for the race. But yeah, Norris is out of this Grand Prix.
Jesus. Well, at least he's okay.
As Carlos Sainz also pitting for a set of hard tyres. So, Lance Stroll now down in 16th place. No, 15th place. And then Perez has gone up to 16th. So, everyone from 14th place down is now on the hard compound tyre. And here is a replay of what happened with Lando. And wow, that was weird. The rear end just completely... He just completely lost the rear end. I don't know if something failed on the car. Bit lucky to not hit his teammate. That was a very weird spin. Maybe it was the bump, I don't know. But that's a very weird spin. Yeah, he just completely lost the rear end of the car. That is quite unusual. But, yeah.
That's a crazy... Yeah, he hit the bump. He hit the bump which I saw Ocon hit beforehand.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the only explainable reason for that, because there's no reason to be losing the rear end through that corner. It's just a easy enough
Jesus.
approach to a 90-degree left-hander. Now taking away Lando's car. This safety car, I don't think is going to affect the race necessarily too much, because it's quite early in the race still, and I don't think as well this safety car is going to last very long, because once they get that car cleared away, which will be the next minute or so, then should be back underway, probably in a couple laps' time.
Also, Verstappen should be giving that place back to Leclerc. 1000%.
Yeah. I'd like to see another replay of it, to be honest. But,
I mean, Max has gone up the inside, not even attempted to... Like, the move in the US was fine because Max actually then kept it on the track, whereas this time he just went completely off the track as well. I think that's not right. I think Max has got to... He should have been told to give that position back absolutely immediately.
And yeah, we're just seeing some replays of the start now. Yeah, I'd say probably yeah. The only thing is, though, is I'm not saying Leclerc was going to go off the track anyway, but he was going wide himself, and he clearly was going to take that wider line, so maybe that'll put doubt into thinking of the race director. But yeah, he probably should, as here's a replay of Alonso uncharacteristically getting the start very wrong. Dive bombing a few cars, spinning, and then Valtteri Bottas crashing his front wing into Alonso's front wing. And then Perez hit the back
I think
of Bottas.
Bottas actually might have got... Yeah, I was about to say, it looks like Bottas got a tap from behind.
Yeah, it was from Perez. And then Sainz actually hit Hamilton. He hit Hamilton on the rear, and Hamilton, for some reason, didn't have any problem after that. Sainz completely spun around. So, disaster so far for McLaren. One car out already. They do have at least a car a lot higher up the field, though, in Piastri on the hard tyre. But that was a very concerning moment for Norris.
Oh, can you imagine how cold their tyres are going to be right now? We're just going to end up in a safety car freaking cycle. Like,
Yeah. I would not want to be on that tyre going into turn one.
no. We're breaking about 200 meters before the corner.
As Hamilton, by the way, despite that contact, he's just said on the radio, I think car is okay. As safety car still out. As they're about to begin lap 6 under the safety car. In terms of the fight for the win, though, because Verstappen's in the lead, I think really it's game, set, and match in terms of that little battle. And really, especially with Perez and Sainz being so low down, I think Russell really should be comfortable to finish in third. Unless something really goes wrong for him. So, really, it's about positions 4th all the way down to 19th. As just need to update that Yuki Tsunoda is actually on the soft compound tyre. Let me quickly do that. But everyone below Tsunoda, except for Ricciardo, is on the hard compound tyre. So there's a lot of runners out there that are going to be struggling with tyre warm-up. Such as Piastri, Hamilton, Stroll, Perez, Sainz, Alonso, and Bottas. And yes, safety car, they've just said, will be in at the end of this lap. And I will admit that what happened at turn 1, it kind of reminded me of the first time we raced in Saudi Arabia, which was a bit mental the first year.
Yeah.
We had I think we had like 3 or 4 different race starts. It was a crazy day. As, yeah, they're just coming now to the part of the track where Lando violently spun off. And as they come onto the back straight, the safety car will now take off into the distance and Max Verstappen will become the safety car. Remember, though, there is a long run until the start-finish line. And obviously no overtaking until the start-finish line. But because of the low temperatures, I think Verstappen will want to get on with this ASAP. He does not want to crawl around until the start-finish line, because I think that would be a very risky move, how cold it is. As Verstappen just warming his tyres up down the back straight. And as soon as he gets the notification that the safety car is in, and now it is in, now it's up to him when he goes, as he continues to warm his tyres. If I was him, I'd get on with it in the middle of the chicane, and actually he's going to get on with it. Is he? No. That is, well, that was very smart from Verstappen. He looked like he was getting on with it. Then he backed off and then went again, and he's now built quite a gap already as they're about to begin lap 7 of the Las Vegas Grand Prix. And Verstappen leads from Leclerc 2nd, Russell 3rd, Gasly 4th, Albon 5th, as Piastri down the inside of Tsunoda on the hard tyre. Has he got it done? Oh, yes, he has. And Piastri, what a move on those cold, hard tyres. And he's up to P10. And Hamilton now having a go. Is he at Tsunoda? No, not quite. But that was a very bold move by Piastri, and it paid off. So he's up into the top 10. And Tsunoda, who started on the soft tyre, is, as what we're looking at here, Sainz and Alonso racing very closely, coming into the mid-sector, racing over 17th place. As Max Verstappen almost 2 seconds clear already on this lap. An incredible restart from him. That was perfect from Verstappen. He's already on the back straight. And now can start to stretch those legs out front as Leclerc pulling away from Russell behind. And Russell got a bit of a train behind him at the minute. I know it's only been one racing lap after the safety car, but got quite a few cars close to him. Gasly, Albon, Sargent.
It's been 2 sectors, Chaz.
As Carlos Sainz has overtaken Sergio Perez at the final chicane. So Sainz is up to, and no, Perez has got back past him as we are now on lap 8. And Hamilton still having a go at Tsunoda. And now side by side, they are coming through turn 3. Will Hamilton go right round the outside? Yes, he does. What a move by Lewis Hamilton. And he is up to 11th place. And Tsunoda, you'd imagine, will pit very soon to get rid of those soft compound tyres. As Max Verstappen has been given a 5-second time penalty for what happened at turn 1. That is, I mean, yeah, I mean, I agree, but why? I mean, Red Bull will ask, why didn't they just ask us to let him back through? But yeah, there you go.
Well, Red Bull did come over the team radio and say that they're happy that he was ahead at the time that they went off track.
Yeah, I don't think that was the case.
Questionable, yeah.
As Zhou, I can see, is now up to 13th ahead of Ricciardo. As here comes Esteban Ocon right on the back of Kevin Magnussen. Will he go for the move? Down the inside. No, not quite. Magnussen braking a lot later as Russell has still got Gasly and Albon and Sargent close behind as Verstappen and Leclerc ahead pull away.
So Piastri's up to 9th as well, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Piastri up in P9 as we are on lap 9 as Max Verstappen has done the fastest lap on 1 minute 40.1 as Ocon still all over the back of Magnussen. And those hard tyres, I have to say, are working very well because the drivers on them are really making progress. As yeah, Zhou is up to 13th ahead of Ricciardo. We've got what? Fernando Alonso has overtaken Carlos Sainz. We haven't seen that, but Alonso is ahead as Kevin Magnussen has quite the train of cars behind him. As Red Bull telling Max, you've been given a 5-second penalty for that incident, but you're already 2 seconds ahead. So just keep edging the gap out to the stop. And then Max saying, yeah, that's fine. Send them my regards. As, I mean, it's notable, obviously, the 5-second penalty, but it's not going to cost him the win because he is going to win by over 5 seconds on track as Ocon passes Magnussen into the chicane and is up to 7th. And now Piastri all over the back of the Dane as they're about to begin lap 10 as Max Verstappen does another fastest lap of the race. And yeah, Piastri down the inside into turn 1. Is he going to go for it? Magnussen's left the door open as Russell has done the fastest lap, interestingly, at 1:39.5. Brilliant move by Piastri. And he is up to 8th place. What a race this has been so far for the young Australian as Magnussen tries to come back at him and goes round the outside. And that is a good bit of racing there by Magnussen, who actually gets back past Piastri as Hülkenberg now has Hamilton all over the back of him. Yuki Tsunoda is now in 13th place, still suffering on those soft compound tyres. Now has his teammate right behind him as Leclerc now keeping the gap at about 2 seconds. And Russell having a bit of a worse lap on this occasion as Piastri really close to Magnussen ahead as they now enter the back straight. And surely Oscar is going to overtake us. Look at this. Pierre Gasly, DRS open, and he's going to go for the move on George Russell, who defends into the chicane as Piastri in the background has passed Magnussen for 8th, but Gasly faster than Russell here as, side-by-side action in the background. I just saw towards the back as Leclerc now does the fastest lap of the race. Things hotting up in Vegas. Hamilton still, or actually no, he is now ahead of Hülkenberg. Hamilton up to 10th as the two Aston Martins there kind of side by side as Yuki Tsunoda now pits to get rid of those soft compound tyres. Sergio Perez now up to 14th with Stroll 15th, Alonso 16th, and then Sainz, Bottas, Tsunoda. As now Carlos Sainz going for the dive bomb at turn 5, and Carlos passes his compatriot and is up to 16th place as Fernando desperately tries to come back at him. As let me just update that Piastri, of course, on the hard tyres. So just showing a replay of it. The Hamilton intent on the hard, Hülkenberg on the medium, and that's all done. And then Tsunoda, I will assume, will go on to the hard compound tyre, which is the best tyre. As Leclerc here complaining about Max's restart, saying that was dangerous. He went and stopped again. I did think at the time it was a bit sketchy, but he got away with it.
Yeah, I did notice that it looked like Leclerc locked up as they were going into the... yeah, he did. Left front locked up as they were going into the chicane.
Yeah, it was... I think Max was a bit lucky to get away with that as he's done the fastest lap of 1:38.7 as Lewis Hamilton is up to 9th. And Pierre Gasly still pretty close to Russell ahead, still within a second of him. That battle for the podium continues on. But clearly, the hard compound tyre is the best tyre. You can clearly see that as now Zhou Guanyu is up to 11th. Perez has passed Ricciardo for 13th. And Tsunoda actually has come out on a set of medium compound tyres. So Tsunoda on the mediums. Then got Joe on the hard, Hülkenberg on the medium, Perez on hard, Ricciardo on medium. As here's a replay of him passing Magnussen into the final chicane, and he's only got Piastri just a few tenths of a second ahead, as Leclerc still only a couple seconds behind Max. And the pace of the Ferrari, I've got to say, is actually a lot better than we expected. As here comes Sergio Perez passing his ex-teammate at Force India, Nico Hülkenberg, into the chicane. So Perez is up to 12th. Getting on with it, as this is Ricciardo just ahead of Sainz. Ricciardo has just been overtaken by Stroll. Carlos Sainz unable to get past, and Ferrari telling him, we need you to cool the car. Carlos saying, I'm on it. Saying that whilst trying desperately to overtake. But, right. Let me just update that hold on. Carlos Sainz now overtaking Daniel Ricciardo for 15th into turn 5. But, Nico Hülkenberg has just pitted and come out in 18th place. And all action start here, thankfully, as we've now got Alonso crawling all over the back of Ricciardo, and the AlphaTauri just showing how slow it's been this weekend. They've been comfortably the slowest team here. That's why Ricciardo is dropping like a stone. But yeah, let me just update who is on what tyre compound. As Alonso about to overtake Daniel Ricciardo, as we're on lap 14, and Max Verstappen did the fastest lap, but it was quickly replaced by Charles Leclerc, and Ferrari are showing they have got the pace to win here in Vegas as the gap is down to 1.7 seconds. And I say that Lewis Hamilton on the hard tyre now does the fastest lap, and now Sergio Perez on the hard tyre does the fastest lap. So, just proving there, the hard compound tyre is clearly working very well. As Alonso up to 15th. And here we're looking at Logan Sargent being overtook by Esteban Ocon. And I think Logan might have a slight problem, because I don't know really why he was overtaken by Ocon into turn 7. But Ocon is up to 6th place.
It just looked like Sargent was a bit asleep, to be honest with you, Chaz.
Yeah, it almost looked like he just let him go. That's why I was assuming it must be a problem. It was just such a weird overtake. As what have we got? This is Lewis Hamilton right behind Oscar Piastri, who's right behind Logan Sargent as they're coming into the final chicane. The Williams, though, too quick in a straight line, or is it? It's Piastri licks the stamp and sends it at the chicane and is up to 7th place. And maybe Sargent's tyres may have gone. That might be why now dropping through the field on lap 15.
Great move, that.
Thankfully for him, he's only got Ocon about a second or so up the road. And thankfully for Piastri, he's on a very good tyre for this current part of the race. As here is Perez with the Alfa Romeo there of Zhou and Magnussen there, and they were almost 3 wide down the back straight, and Perez eventually did overtake Zhou, and Kevin Magnussen has actually pitted. So Perez is up and Magnussen now down in 17th place, as Perez is obviously on the hard compound tyres. Ricciardo still out there on the medium.
You going to speak about Leclerc?
Oh yeah, Leclerc is now, I've just seen, he's only half a second behind Verstappen. This is brilliant for Ferrari. They are quicker than Red Bull here in Vegas, even in race conditions, something we've not said for a long time. As they begin lap 16, and with Max also having a 5-second penalty, if Leclerc can overtake and pull away, then surely Ferrari are in a very good position to win this race. As George Russell now pits. First front runner to pit, Logan Sargent also pits. And presumably they'll go to the hard tyres as Max having to defend the inside line into turn 5. And Leclerc gets a good exit, and Leclerc looks like he has so much more downforce and grip, really, compared to Max. Max struggling through the corners, and Leclerc all over him through this middle sector. And when they get to the back straight, surely it will be comfortable for Leclerc to overtake. As Logan Sargent is now down in 16th place. As Verstappen saying on the radio, my tyres are going to get really shit, mate. And clearly his tyres have seen their best day. As Leclerc now with DRS down the back straight closes on Verstappen as they tell him to box. Will Leclerc overtake? Verstappen, defends to the middle, and Leclerc does. go for the inside line into the final chicane, and Charles Leclerc leads in Vegas as Max Verstappen, who's struggling and has a 5-second penalty, now comes in. Advantage to the Scuderia. As Verstappen, now pits, and Lewis Hamilton has just overtaken Oscar Piastri. And let me just update. They're now pausing for 5 seconds before they work on Max's car. Russell has come out in 13th place. You're wondering? As Albon and Piastri pit as well. So it's currently Leclerc from Gasly, Ocon, as, slow pit stop there for Piastri. Only a couple seconds slow. But, it's Leclerc, Gasly, Ocon, Perez now up in 4th, and then Stroll up in 5th. As here's a replay of Hamilton passing Piastri, and, contact. Right rear of Hamilton to the left rear, and, that's what happened. Piastri had a puncture. That's why he came in. As we're on lap 17. And that, I mean, he's lucky, Piastri. He was basically at the pit lane. Hamilton's got problems as well. He's dropping back. He must have a puncture as well, or some sort of damage as he knocks the phone over. What a disaster for Hamilton in what's been a disastrous weekend for him. And we'll see what type of damage he's got. And it does look like
he's got a puncture.
Yeah.
He said on the team radio he's got a puncture. Yeah.
As
gotta say, that was very clumsy by Oscar.
What you think? You should have just let him go a bit easier.
Yeah.
As Pierre Gasly has pitted. By the way, because of Verstappen's 5-second penalty, Verstappen has come out behind Russell, so Max is now in a net 3rd place. As Pierre Gasly pits, and Gasly will come out fresher tyres in a net what should be basically 4th place as Hamilton now pits. It's all going off here. So it's Leclerc leading from Ocon, Perez 3rd, Stroll 4th, Piastri and Hamilton collision noted. 4th thing in collision. Perez 3rd, Stroll 4th, Carlos Sainz up to 5th now. And then Zhou in 6th. Alonso is 7th. There's just a replay of Hamilton knocking the cone over, which and then Russell is 8th, and then Verstappen, I believe, is in 9th place. And then it's Russell 8th, Verstappen 9th, Gasly 10th, Albon 11th, Bottas is 12th. And then, as here, Sergio Perez passing Esteban Ocon for 2nd.
Verstappen is not happy with Hamilton. Apparently, he just drove on the normal racing line, even with the puncture.
As Leclerc still sticking out there on lap 19. And then, outside of the top 10, we've got Albon in 11th. As Alonso goes up to 6th. Albon 11th, Bottas 12th, Sargent 13th, Piastri 14th, Magnussen 15th, Hulkenberg in 16th, and then Tsunoda 17th. Hamilton has just passed Ricciardo for 18th, and then Ricciardo, who has only just pitted, is in 19th. So there you go. There is the order. What's been a pretty exciting Grand Prix so far. And everybody on the hard tyre except for Leclerc, Ocon, who haven't pitted yet, and Tsunoda and Hamilton, who have pitted.
I don't know if you saw, but no further investigation with Piastri and Hamilton. From the off-board shot, it just looked like Piastri let his car hang in there when he probably didn't need to. Probably got to wait for the onboards.
Yeah, maybe just should have let Hamilton go through and maybe just try to get a better exit. But yeah, we'll see if we get any onboard shots of that. As here is George Russell trying to overtake Zhou on lap 20. And Russell gets the move done as we are on lap 20 and only 30 laps to go.
And and just quickly, you could just see visibly Verstappen's front tyres were absolutely cooked compared to Leclerc's. Red Bull have opted for less downforce in this with this race setup, and well, it's kind of not paid off so far this weekend. They've not been at their best, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's not. It's been one of their weakest Grand Prix. We have seen though this season at street circuits they have been weaker, but they have been quite a bit weaker than even I was expecting this weekend. As Verstappen, is he going to overtake Zhou into turn 5? No, he's not got quite enough speed and confidence to do that, and that's going to hurt him now through the middle sector. As we just had a yellow flag briefly in the middle sector. Probably someone just going off the track for a couple seconds. Verstappen is now held up behind Zhou. That's costing him a lot of lap time. And this is great for Ferrari because if Leclerc, I mean, he's still out there as Verstappen goes daringly around the outside of Zhou. If Leclerc stays out there long enough and then comes out on much fresher tyres and is ahead of Max, or even just behind, that's putting Leclerc in a great position for the rest of this race because obviously they have fresher tyres for the next stint. And at this rate, given that we're at lap 20, I think Ferrari, they might think of doing a one-stop race from here. I don't think they probably will do that, but it's definitely possible. Given that they've done
Ferrari.
Yeah. Given that they've done 20 laps on the mediums. As Esteban Ocon has just pitted from 3rd position. And we'll see where he comes out. He'll probably come out. I think he had overtook Albon right before Albon pitted. And he has now come out just behind Albon and Piastri as well. So that is good for Piastri. Ocon in 12th position on the hard tyre. And now everyone on the hard except for Leclerc, Tsunoda and Hamilton. As Kevin Magnussen overtakes Valtteri Bottas for 14th place. Yeah, Leclerc's still out there on the mediums, and if I'm Ferrari, I don't see why not he should continue out there, but he's not going to continue because Ferrari have called him into the box as he's nearly 28 seconds ahead of Verstappen, and it only costs 21 seconds for a pit stop. So this is working out so well for Ferrari. As Russell trying here to overtake Fernando Alonso, who's still defending as hard as he can. And can Leclerc come out ahead of this little fight? If he can, that would be perfect. As Russell and Alonso racing their way to turn 1, and Leclerc will come out just behind Lance Stroll, but crucially ahead of that battle. And this race is going absolutely to plan for the Scuderia. They're in the net lead on much fresher tyres, and at this point, it's theirs to lose. As Alonso now has got Russell and Verstappen on his back, as Yuki Tsunoda pitting again already. AlphaTauri ready at the very back of the field. Surely this time around, Russell will overtake Fernando. And they're about to start their run on the back straight as Tsunoda comes out appears on another set of medium tyres. I have no idea what AlphaTauri are doing. Clearly the hards are working, but they keep putting Tsunoda on the wrong tyres as Russell now overtakes Alonso. Alonso, will he try to come back? No. And will Verstappen go for the move? No, not quite. He wasn't close enough. As Sergio Perez now is in the lead on lap 23. Of course, Perez, since the safety car, has not pitted. So this is good for Perez. He's in clean air. Lance Stroll is about, I think, 8.5 seconds behind. So now Perez, as Verstappen overtakes Alonso into turn 1, Perez now has the chance to put in some good, strong laps in clean air. And then later will be on good, fresh, softer tyres. Now Verstappen closing in on Russell as Leclerc in third. Only just ahead of his teammate, which is interesting. Maybe Leclerc's just managing his tyres, knowing that he's, for the moment, in a comfortable enough position. As I've seen Oscar Piastri has passed Alex Albon. He's now up to 10th place. And we've also got Hulkenberg up to 15th as Verstappen right on the back of Russell as they now enter the back straight. And surely the Red Bull will overtake the Mercedes unless Russell gets DRS from Sainz ahead. And he does not. Verstappen, is he close enough though? Not quite. And, well, we did see after qualifying that Russell had quite a high top speed qualifying, which I'm sure helped him qualify so well. Verstappen still stuck behind. As this is, well, very frustrating for Max. Got into the lead, then was given a penalty, then overtaken by Leclerc, and yeah, things are just not going right. As they're just showing a replay of a slow pit stop for Leclerc, about a second and a half too long. As now, Carlos Sainz, under pressure from Russell and Verstappen, and now has to do the team job in holding up these two cars to help his teammate. Perez continuing to pull away. And I've got to say, yeah, Sergio Perez, watch out for him later in this race because he is in a very good position. 10 seconds clear now of Stroll. Stroll about a couple seconds ahead of Leclerc. So Perez, once he makes his pit stop, I think he's going to be in very good nick in the second half of this race. As now Sainz under pressure for Russell down the back straight. DRS open. And the overtake surely will be complete. Sainz will get back into the slipstream as Verstappen goes for the inside. And Sainz loses 2 positions down the back straight. So Russell 4th, Verstappen in 5th as Gasly overtakes Zhou. Gasly still having a good race and is still in a net 4th, 5th position. As we are now on lap 25. As Esteban Ocon passes Alexander Albon. This race not really going very well for Williams at the moment. But we are halfway through this Las Vegas Grand Prix. And as we're halfway through, just want to say quickly, as Verstappen having a look at Russell, and Ocon has done the fastest lap of the race, a 1:37.6. Just wanted to say quickly, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this because we do qualifying and race watch-alongs for every Grand Prix. And of course, we will be doing so for the next Grand Prix, the final Grand Prix next weekend in Abu Dhabi. And if you haven't already, make sure to smash that like button. Really helps the channel and the algorithm. We're on 118 likes. Let's try and get up to, I don't know, 130 plus. Or even 150 plus, if we can, by the end of the race. As Verstappen throws it down the inside of Russell into turn 12, and contact has been made. I don't know who's missing what. I think Verstappen has lost a bit of his front wing, and that looked a bit clumsy, but I'm not sure who was at fault there necessarily.
Russell turned in on him. I was watching Max's onboard. Russell turned in on him.
Right, as Leclerc there just passing Stroll for second, as Verstappen is now ahead of Russell, as Valtteri Bottas I've just seen has pitted and is now in 18th place, as we are on lap 26, and Perez now 11.3 seconds clear of Leclerc. Perez, yeah, about half a pit stop ahead of Leclerc, as Max saying on the radio, mate, he just turns in on me, check my tyre, front wing, and engineer saying, tyre is okay for now, stay out. Yeah, I only caught the end of it, so I'd like to see a replay.
Yeah, I'm very confident in what I saw. That's for sure. He just Max went up the inside because Russell had taken just sort of the normal racing line and was sort of asleep, and then Max was fully alongside on the apex, and Russell literally just turned in.
Right, here we go. Here's a replay from the rear of Russell. Russell's car. Max side by side, and yeah, looks like Russell turned in. Here's Max is on board. This will be the best view. And yeah, Russell's turned in. So if anyone's going to get a penalty for that, it will be George Russell. And that was Red Bull bodywork that flew off. So as a safety car, a full safety car, and that is brilliant for Sergio Perez, who can where is Perez? Can he pit, or has he already gone past the pits? No, he now pits. Brilliant for Perez. Is now Verstappen told to box as well. And yeah,
he's going to be in the lead.
Yeah, Perez, I think, is going to be in the lead as he pits for the hard tyres on lap 27. Has Sergio Perez got incredibly lucky here? Let's see. No, he hasn't quite, as Leclerc has gone into the lead, but still has got quite lucky and is now in a real second position. But Verstappen pits as well for a new front wing, also pitting Stroll, Russell, Sainz, Alonso, Zhou pitting as well. So absolute chaos on the exit of the pit lane as Verstappen just about comes out ahead of Ocon there in 5th place. And let me just wait for everybody to make their pit stops, and then let me see who's in what position.
Max nearly spun trying to get ahead of Ocon before the white line.
It did look really close. I was wondering if Max was almost over the pit exit line, as Russell and Verstappen noted that incident for causing a collision, as Lewis Hamilton has pitted. This is great for Hamilton to get back into this race, but it is Leclerc leading, Perez second, Gasly third, Piastri now 4th, and then Verstappen 5th, Ocon in 6th, with Stroll in 7th. This has been great for Stroll. Albon in 8th, Russell 9th, Carlos Sainz in 10th, and then Logan Sargent 11th, Fernando Alonso 12th, Zhou Guanyu 13th, Magnussen 14th, Ricciardo 15th, Hulkenberg 16th, Hamilton 17th, Bottas 18th, Tsunoda 19th, obviously Norris out of the race. But that's your order, as we're just over halfway through, and we have another safety car, and this race, which has been, I've got to say, pretty good, I think is going to get even better now after this safety car has finished. There's a replay of Sainz pitting, and a bit kind of close with the Red Bull, but not close enough for any type of penalty. As yeah, Russell and Verstappen now under investigation for causing a collision. And yeah, Verstappen did have a proper tank slapper as soon as he turned off the pit limiter. A couple other close moments in the pit lane with an Aston Martin. And yeah, got very close there, side by side. Stroll and Verstappen, and then Verstappen ended up going ahead and then did a good power slide to keep ahead of Ocon. We're now on lap 28, but I'm pretty sure most people are on the hard compound tire. Yeah, we'll find out when we get back underway who is exactly on what tire, but I'm still pretty sure that most people are on the hard compound. But who knows what's going to happen for the rest of this race? Do you think Perez, though, Nib? Do you think he's the favourite now to win? Now he's on fresher tyres, or do you still think that Ferrari's got enough pace in it to get it done?
I think Perez has probably got to be the favourite, right? 5, I think. Just saw on Twitter, 5-lap pressure tyres.
Yeah.
I think Perez probably does have to be the favourite. I mean, the Red Bull was looking pretty good just before the tyre issues, and I don't think the tyre life is going to be an issue to the end of this race. So,
as a safety car in at the end of this lap. So yeah, I am probably favouring Perez here, and yeah, has got very fortunate, but you know he has had a difficult season, and you know does deserve a bit of fortune as Leclerc there. They're just showing a replay of him nearly spinning behind the safety car. Says, "Oh, I nearly lost it. The tyres are fucking cold." Yeah, I was very lucky there not to spin out. But Leclerc has now become the safety car, and we are now going down the back straight. Can Leclerc take his first win of the season, and it would be his first win since July of 2022, or will Sergio Perez win for the first time since the end of April, where he won in Baku? We are about to find out. As Leclerc, when does he get going? Now he gets going through the final chicane, as Russell has been given a 5-second penalty for that collision, causing a collision. 5-second penalty for Russell as we're now back underway, as Perez desperately defending against Pierre Gasly, as he got racing in the background as well, as Alonso dives down the inside of Logan Sargent. Very aggressive restart from Fernando, who is up to P11, as we've got side by side there. Hulkenberg and Ricciardo, and a great move by Hulkenberg going right round the outside as Piastri sends it on Gasly into turn 5, and what a move by Oscar Piastri, and he's up to third. That looked like it was 100% going to be an accident, and somehow he got away with it. Piastri up into third, and Verstappen all over the back of these two in 5th place. What a move that was, as Albon has passed Lance Stroll for 7th place. And then it's Stroll in 8th, Russell 9th, Sainz in 10th, as Zhou has passed Sargent for 12th. And then you've got Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Ricciardo, Hamilton, Bottas, Tsunoda. But yeah, we are back underway here as Perez sticking close to Leclerc ahead, as we've got just over 20 laps to go, as Verstappen has been noted for an unsafe release. So that might be another penalty for Max Verstappen. As in the background, Russell and Stroll getting close through the final chicane, as Perez closely following Leclerc through the final corner, as they all get back racing. But Nib, what a move by Piastri. That was perfect overtaking. If he's there. I don't think he is. Oh no, He's muted
Oh,
himself.
sorry, I'm muted. I'm muted. Sorry, I didn't realize I'd been muted. I might have been muted for a while now. Oh, sorry, I was blowing my nose. That's right. I've only been since the safety car's been back. Yeah, cracking move. I mean, another great move on the safety car restart, and hopefully now he can stay ahead of Gasly, starting to open up a bit of a gap.
Yeah, and what a race he's having. And at the minute, he's been, you'd have to say, probably the driver of the day. He started Piastri 18th, and he's now running third with about 20 laps to go. What a performance by the Australian. As Sergio Perez right on Leclerc's tail as they come onto the back straight. Only 0.6 of a second separating them. I don't think, though, DRS is enabled yet. So we'll have to wait, Perez, before he gets to have a go. As I just need to update that down the bottom. Bottas is on the medium rather than Hamilton. Hard tyre. And Hamilton has just overtaken Daniel Ricciardo for 16th place as Max Verstappen still stuck in 5th. And the longer he stays stuck in 5th, then the longer it prevents him from possibly taking his 18th win of the season. And of course, Red Bull today looking to become the first team in F1 history to win to take 20 wins in a single season. Can they do it? As Piastri only just over a second behind Perez. As Verstappen now DRS enabled, having a look at Gasly into turn 5, but unable to go for an overtake. What a long train behind Pierre Gasly of, well, basically the entire field all the way back to Nico Hülkenberg, who's just been overtaken by Lewis Hamilton. But we need to be looking at Leclerc and Perez, and now we are. How quickly can Perez gain on Leclerc down this back straight as he gets a decent exit? Not sure it's going to be good enough to overtake. As they now power down the strip. And Piastri in the background again, not too far behind, only 1.2 seconds behind Perez, who's closing when it comes to the chicane. Still not quite close enough, but Max Verstappen in the background is up to 4th place. As Leclerc holds on for now. And for Piastri and McLaren, ideally, as Piastri now does the fastest lap of the race, they need Leclerc to stay ahead for as long as possible to bring Piastri into the fight. As Perez now with DRS open down to turn 5. Not close enough, though, I don't think, to go for a move. He's not. Max Verstappen about 2 seconds behind Piastri. And now behind Gasly, he was overtaken by Verstappen. Yeah, long train of Ocon, Albon, Stroll, Russell, Sainz, Alonso. Reminder, Russell has a 5-second penalty, so he's in quite a bit of trouble for the rest of this race. As Leclerc not looking good, I gotta say, as they now break for turn 12, and Perez looks a couple tenths of a second closer as they are now onto the back straight. And I think Perez on this occasion will be able to have a go as the DRS opens about now. And here Perez comes and goes for the inside line, and Sergio Perez takes the lead in Las Vegas for Red Bull Racing, and Leclerc didn't even defend. Perez leads, and can he take his 3rd win of 2023? As Piastri now within a second of Leclerc ahead. And, well, as Max Verstappen does the fastest lap at this point, what can Leclerc and Ferrari do to win? With Perez on the fresher tyres, I'm not sure there's anything really they can do. As here's a replay of Perez getting it done, and yeah, it was simple enough. and got a brilliant exit as well from the chicane, did Perez. Red Bull mechanics loving that. As we look a bit further behind, and we're looking at the battle at Alpine for 5th and 6th. Gasly and Ocon. Ocon is on, I think, fresher tyres. That's why Ocon looks a lot quicker than Gasly right now. As Max Verstappen about 0.6 of a second behind Piastri as they're about to come onto the back straight. Yeah, Ocon getting very close to Gasly. And probably is going to overtake Gasly into the chicane as they now are on this back straight. And now they just cut to further ahead to look at Verstappen behind Piastri. And surely this move is going to get done, and it is. Piastri, does he defend? Not really. Verstappen into the podium position now as Gasly and Ocon in the background side by side, and Gasly still holding on for 5th place. And Lewis Hamilton now ahead of Kevin Magnussen as Ocon dives to the inside aggressively and takes 5th place. Brilliant aggressive driving. Does he keep it though? No, he doesn't. As Gasly goes round the outside. Brilliant racing between the two drivers, but really they need to work a bit as a team at the moment. As now Ocon coming back at Gasly round the outside into turn 5. And Ocon gets it done. Good racing. And Ocon into 5th. Also has had a great race. He started in, 16th place in Ocon. But it's actually, hold on, lap 34 out of 50. Leclerc still only a second behind Perez. He's doing well, Leclerc. But because Perez has those fresher tyres, Leclerc, I think, needs to hope for a bit of a miracle to come back at Perez to win this race. As Lewis Hamilton has overtaken Logan Sargent as well. Hamilton up to 13th. Mercedes, though, at the moment, only heading for, well, they're heading for 0 points because of Russell's penalty. As Leclerc is now back within a second of Perez. Only 0.7 of a second behind, so it's now coming back to Ferrari as we're just looking at the battle here with Gasly and Ocon. And honestly, and maybe it's because of Esteban's history, but I thought that was going to be a collision when those two were side by side. I thought, yeah, here we go, more teammate drama.
I was about to say, Esteban Ocon working as a team with his teammate. That's a very foreign concept to Esteban Ocon. So, yeah, but no contact and good racing in the end. So nice to see.
Leclerc is still within a second of Perez and is actually closing the gap. I've got to say, very surprising here that Leclerc is coming back at Perez. The only reason I can think as to why this is happening, because in the slipstream, Ferrari very, very quick. As Max Verstappen now about a second behind Leclerc. A three-way fight for the win with 15 laps to go. That's exactly what we want. As Leclerc, does he have DRS down the back straight? I think he will. As he will now close the gap down to the final chicane. I don't think he will be able to go for a move. No, he's going to send it. Leclerc down the inside. And oh, what a move by the Monegasque. Last minute overtaking. And that was, again, another brilliant late maneuver. We've seen so many of them today. And Leclerc back into the lead with 15 full laps to go. That was from a long, long way back. At least it looked that on the TV.
Yeah, it did look a fair way back, but Perez did leave the door open and Leclerc just went down the inside. A great move indeed.
And we'll see now if Leclerc can pull away, or whether Perez is now just going to come back at him and they're going to basically have a ding-dong battle for the next 15 laps. But yeah, very good move. And Perez, I think for a very small moment of time, he was going to turn in and then thought that Leclerc was in the mirrors, as Leclerc is actually pulling away, but Perez will still have the DRS. As all Perez, they're sliding wide through turn 12 as they enter the back straight. That I thought was going to end in the barriers. Thankfully it didn't, but Perez will still get the DRS, I think, from Leclerc ahead, as Verstappen now going to overtake Perez round the outside, down the back straight, and Verstappen up to second, and now right behind Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, Perez had a big lock up into 12.
Yeah, he was, I think, quite lucky not to smack the rear of his car on that barrier, as Leclerc now begins lap 37. And can he hold off Verstappen to take his first win, as I said, in a year and a half? A long time since his last victory. As Verstappen saying, let's work together here, we can get him. And Verstappen is on fresher tyres than Leclerc, but it's not a massive difference. I think only, what?
I believe it'll be 5 laps.
Yeah, something like that. So, I mean, it's still going to be hard for Leclerc, but it's not a gigantic difference between the two. As Verstappen now really closing on Leclerc as they now come down to turn 12. Max on a mission to take his 18th win of the season, as Red Bull telling Perez, stay with him, double toe here, we work together. They want the 1-2. Can Verstappen, though, make it 1 for Red Bull? As the DRS is open, and yes, surely he's going to get the move done. Leclerc defends to the inside. Max goes for the inside anyway, and is up into the lead, but Leclerc braking very late round the outside, but Max still gets the position, and Max Verstappen is inevitable. No matter what you throw at him, he still ends up in the lead. As we've got about, 13 laps to go now. Can Leclerc respond, or will Max get another win? As Hamilton has just overtaken Zhou for 12th and is now right behind Fernando Alonso. As I've just seen as well, Lance Stroll, probably a couple laps ago, has overtaken Alexander Albon. So a couple important positions changing there. As, yeah, Hamilton obviously on the hard, Zhou on the medium. As here is Sainz and Russell racing very close into turn 7, 8, and 9. And Russell having to move offline a bit to defend his position. As Leclerc now has dropped to second behind Max Verstappen. As, Sergio Perez about 9/10 of a second behind. And Leclerc has just got the gap down under a second now. And I think that's probably because of DRS and a bit of slipstream as well. As a big train now forming behind the Williams of Alexander Albon, as Max Verstappen does the fastest lap, but Leclerc only 7/10 of a second behind. The battle for the victory is not over. Yeah, big train behind Albon of Russell, Sainz, Alonso, and Hamilton. A lot of greatness waiting to overtake him. But still very close up front, as Leclerc getting closer again. As here comes Russell at turn 5. Will he go for the outside move on Albon? No, Albon defends the inside very well and keeps him at bay. As Verstappen, pulling away very crucially in the middle sector. He's pulled the gap over a second to Leclerc, and that might make the all-important difference here between who wins, who finishes second, as Perez still within a second of Leclerc. This train behind Albon only continues. And can Russell, he's got a good run, but has he got enough straight line speed to overtake? We're about to find out. As the DRS is now open, and surely he will overtake. Round the outside, down to the chicane. And Russell is up to 8th place. Here on lap 40 as Max Verstappen does take another fastest lap, and the gap between Max and Charles still very close. And this could be a classic finish here in Las Vegas, as the front three still within a second of each other. Battle continuing to rage on, and I am thinking, Nib, that really, because of how powerful the slipstream and the tow is, here as Alex Albon, hold on, Alex Albon went very wide there through turn 5, and he's just let 2 cars through. What a poor mistake by Albon, unless he's got a problem. And now Sainz up to 9th, and Alonso up to 10th, and Hamilton dives down the inside at turn 9 and is now up to 11th. I was going to say, with how powerful the tow is, maybe Leclerc will be able to, just stay with Max even on older tyres. Do you think that's possible? Or do you think Max is just got too much pace at this moment?
Oh, as you're speaking, the gap has gone out a bit, so I'm not sure. I'm not too sure at the moment, Chaz, to be honest with you. I mean, it sort of reminds me of F1 games at the moment.
Yeah.
Just in a 5-lapper, you're just not able to break the DRS, and Perez is probably going to be quite important here. If Perez can get past Leclerc, it'll be absolutely crucial for Red Bull.
Yeah, if Perez passes Leclerc, even if Leclerc comes back at him, it'll waste enough time for Leclerc that Verstappen should then win this race. So Leclerc has got to just keep pushing and hoping that he can start gaining time on Max. I mean, we did see earlier, Max's tyres did go off quite quickly. Maybe that will happen in these final 10 laps. Probably not. But he just needs to keep going and hope. But he is dropping very far behind now. Now he's not in the DRS of Verstappen. And this race, unfortunately, has kind of fallen apart for Leclerc. And really just bad luck with the safety car coming out when it did. As now Sergio Perez with DRS will close on Leclerc into the final chicane, but I don't think he'll be close enough to overtake. But surely inevitable that Perez will go for the move on Leclerc in the next 2 or 3 laps. As Lance Stroll right behind Gasly on the back straight and has overtaken. So Stroll up to 6th, having another good race. Obviously in Brazil 2 weeks ago, finished in 5th. And of course, Stroll and Gasly separated by a point over 10th in the championship. So that puts Stroll in the current live standings back into P10. As we're just seeing a replay here, I think, of, how Verstappen passed Leclerc. And unfortunately, inevitable. And Verstappen, he has got a bit lucky. But, with the front wing damage and all, it's not like it was his fault. So, yeah. Here is a replay of Stroll passing Gasly down the back straight and a very easy overtake. Stroll now will hunt down the other Alpine of Ocon. Perez still right on Leclerc's tail. And
radio message from Leclerc. My tyres are fucking gone.
Oh dear. As well, he's a bit further ahead of Perez this time, but yeah. I think his opportunity to win, unfortunately, has escaped him. As Logan Sargent is now down in 16th place. Having, unfortunately, a disappointing race for what's been a good weekend for him. As we are now on lap 43. And I just want to say quickly, guys, make sure to stick around until after the race finishes, because I will be doing a reaction, of course. And I will be setting up a poll asking you guys who you think driver of the day is for this race. Let me know in that poll after the race who you think the driver of the day is. I think I'm pretty sure who I know driver of the day is. We'll get into that after the race. As Alonso, we're looking at on the mini screen, who's fighting hard with Carlos Sainz. The only positive at the minute for Ferrari is they are scoring a lot more points than Mercedes in the battle for second in the championship. Oh, just as I say that, Leclerc locks up into turn 12, goes deep, and Perez goes through. And that is game, set, and match. Red Bull are going to take a 1-2 in Vegas. That is such a shame after what has been the best weekend of Leclerc's season by far. What a shame.
Very sad. Very unfortunate. It should have been a Ferrari win today, but they've just got unlucky.
And of course, Leclerc once again suffering bad luck, which, yeah. Even though this hasn't been his greatest season, he has been quite unlucky in certain weekends as well. First couple races of this season was a clear indication as to that, as Oscar Piastri has pitted. What?
I think Piastri tyres were absolutely gone as well. I think they were like nearly 30-lap-old hard tyres.
All right. Well, Piastri has now dropped all the way down to 11th place. 1.9 second pit stop, though. Fuck me, that's a good pit stop. Only 1/10 of a second slower than their world record in Qatar, as Sainz passes Gasly. And I think we are seeing, Nib, I think we are now seeing tyres, falling off completely. As Russell is now up in 6th. Piastri, is now in 11th place. So Russell is up in 6th. With Sainz now 7th, Gasly 8th, Alonso 9th, Hamilton 10th, Albon 11th, Piastri 12th, and Piastri has come out on a set of medium tyres. So we'll see how quickly he could be towards the end. Maybe he'll overtake loads of people. As we're now on lap 44. As we're looking at Alonso and Gasly coming down the back straight. And Gasly's tyres definitely have gone. Max Verstappen does the fastest lap. And Alonso goes, around the outside, but he goes wide. And Gasly will get a better exit off the chicane. Not sure, though. No, he won't be able to keep that going, as Hamilton, will he now go side by side with Gasly? Down all through the final corner. Brave stuff. And Hamilton up to 9th on lap 45. And this race, trust me, is not over until the checkered flag, as there is still plenty of racing to come, as Piastri has already overtaken Albon. So Oscar up to 11th place. yeah, what a disappointing race this has been for the Williams team. But thankfully, AlphaTauri, their main rival, are not scoring any points. But yeah, with Oscar Piastri, he is catching Pierre Gasly very quickly. So I think Piastri will score a point, at least, in this race. As Leclerc, by the way, has got back within a second of Perez. So I wonder if Perez's tyres have gone or whether he's got a problem. Because Leclerc now just 0.7 of a second behind. As we're on lap 46, 5 full laps remaining of what's been, let's be honest, a brilliant Grand Prix here in Vegas. As Lance Stroll only 1.3 seconds behind Ocon in the battle for 4th. That battle will go on to the end as Hamilton right behind Alonso. Will he go for the move at turn 1? No. As Ricciardo has passed Logan Sargent for 16th place. Piastri, I think, is catching Gasly by nearly or pretty much 2 seconds a lap. So Piastri probably will finish 10th. Unless something crazy happens for the top 9. But we could see, given how close it is still, we could see still about another 5-6 position changes in the top 10. And we've only got 4.5 laps remaining. As Hamilton close behind Alonso. Leclerc closing back in on Perez. And I think he does have DRS again, does Leclerc. That's what's allowing him to close up. But we're not currently seeing visually the battle right now. As here comes Hamilton to overtake Fernando Alonso. And Hamilton is up to 8th. Good recovery. What's been an awful weekend. The 7-time champion. As, yeah, Piastri only 4.7 seconds behind now. A couple of laps ago, it was like 8.8 seconds. As Kevin Magnussen is up to 13th. Update what tyre he is on. As, Nico Hülkenberg has pulled off and is out of the race. So Hülkenberg, the second DNF of this Grand Prix. Leclerc, yes, is within a second of Perez. Can he prevent a Red Bull 1-2? We will find out. Bottas, let me just correct that he is last of all. What an awful race he's had. Started in 7th, and he's not, after that start, he's not gone anywhere. As Leclerc closing on Perez, but not close enough. I've got to say, this is brilliant from Leclerc. A brilliant recovery after that lockup to come back at Perez. Because most drivers would have completely lost their head and would have just brought it home for the position they were in. But Leclerc got straight back on it. And now racing hard for second place. Max Verstappen, 4.5 seconds clear of Perez. Max is surely going to win this race. Another battle to look out for. Russell is only half a second behind Stroll in the battle for 5th. As Yuki Tsunoda has just complained about a gearbox problem. As Oscar Piastri does the fastest lap of 1:35.4. So at least when Piastri gets into the top 10, he'll get an extra point. But Perez pulling away a bit more in this middle sector. And yes, Tsunoda going slowly. And yeah, I think Tsunoda is out of this race. Cap off probably the worst weekend AlphaTauri have had in 2023. As we're looking at the mini screen at Russell and Stroll, yellow flag in sector 3. And that is for, Yuki Tsunoda, who's pulled off and is now going behind the barrier. So, Tsunoda out of the race. As we're about to begin the penultimate lap, as Russell round the outside, he goes of Lance Stroll. And Russell is up to 5th. But, of course, he has that 5-second time penalty. So, his end result is not going to be 5th. It's probably going to be 9th, maybe even 10th place. As Piastri passes Gasly for 10th. As we are on lap 49. Leclerc still keeping close to Sergio Perez. So, as we're on the penultimate lap, in case Leclerc does pass Perez in the next lap and a half, Nib, a quick word on our race winner. A bit lucky today, but as I said earlier, Max Verstappen is inevitable, isn't he?
He is. He is inevitable. Well, he's got George Russell to thank for turning in on him, really.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that
Yeah.
Russell has caused all this?
Yeah, it was a blessing in disguise for Max. And at that point of the race, we were saying, oh, how bad a race this is turning into. And yeah, in the end, it's worked out brilliantly for Verstappen as he is about to begin the final lap as Leclerc continuing to close on Perez. They're now on to what is basically the pit straight. The penultimate time. As they are now on the final lap in Las Vegas. As Leclerc giving it everything, but I'll be honest, I don't think he is going to pass Perez here. I think he just doesn't have enough in the bag to do it. George Russell, by the way, watch out for him. He is only 0.8 of a second behind Ocon. As Ricciardo has just overtaken Zhou, as Zhou's medium compound tyres have completely fallen off. I'll just update that Zhou is on the medium. At least a decent-ish finish for Ricciardo. As here comes Leclerc. As Max backing off quite a lot on this lap. And I think he's doing that to give Perez the toe and to help him out. As Leclerc, only 0.6 of a second behind as they're now onto the back straight. For the final time, will Leclerc lick that stamp and send it? And yes, he's going to it. The final chicane, and he's done it. He's into second place. And Leclerc is going to surely take second, or Perez, can he come back at him? But Max Verstappen wins in Las Vegas, the first ever Las Vegas Grand Prix, and Charles Leclerc does finish in second, and he deserves at the very least that. What a brilliant drive and a brilliant race between those three, as Russell did overtake Ocon, but where will he ultimately finish? As, Verstappen wins from Leclerc second, Perez third. Let's see where Russell ends up. Russell ends up in 8th. So Ocon finishes 4th. What a result for him. Stroll 5th. Sainz in 6th. Hamilton 7th. Russell 8th. Alonso 9th. Piastri in 10th and takes the fastest lap. Gasly 11th. Albon 12th. Magnussen 13th. Ricciardo 14th. Zhou 15th. Sargent 16th. Bottas 17th. And your only retirements from the Las Vegas Grand Prix, Yuki Tsunoda, Nico Hülkenberg, and Lando Norris. And after what has been a controversial weekend, that was a cracker of a race. And honestly, I think that was probably one of the best, if not the best race of the season.
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah, the safety car really, really helped that race,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
yeah, well, I mean, incredible move by Leclerc, but he's done the same move 4 times that race.
Yeah. I am a bit surprised that Perez left the door open, to put it that way. I mean, Max was backing off, I think, to try and give Sergio a bit of a slipstream, but yeah, an amazing drive from Leclerc this weekend. I think definitely the driver of the weekend has been Charles Leclerc. For you though, who would you go as driver of the day? There is actually quite a few options for driver of the day.
Well, I mean, it would have been very easy if he didn't have to pit
Yeah,
again.
that's who I was gonna.
Uh,
That's who I was gonna go for before he pitted.
yeah. Oh, between Perez and Leclerc, really. I'm gonna give it to Charles. I mean, probably would have won the Grand Prix today in other circumstances.
Yeah,
Great move in the end to fix up for his mistake where he locked up. Um, yeah, a great drive by Charles, and yeah, he probably deserved the race win today. Very, very, very unlucky Ferrari.
yeah, but as I said, I think earlier in the stream, and as we've seen recently, Ferrari have been getting better and better in the second half of this year, and this is really good omen for next season because they have been in qualifying, yes, but today, and obviously we saw in Singapore, they are getting stronger, which is good to see. Yeah, for me, I'd go Leclerc driver of the day as well. If Piastri had not pitted though, I think I would have gone for him as well. Massive shout out to Piastri. Some of those overtaking moves were, I mean, they were the type of moves that you'd see an experienced top driver make, and he was mugging some people off out there. He really was, and that move on Gasly at turn 5, I think, was probably the move of the race. That was absolutely incredible. Um, Somehow didn't collide and just about got it off. And it was such a crucial move as well for his race because Gasly obviously was so slow. I mean, Piastri, yeah, has only finished in 10th, but it could have been a lot worse if he had not made that move when he did. So, yeah, great race from Oscar. And, well, thankfully, the next Grand Prix, he should be very strong at, and so should that team. But let's now start up the poll for driver of the day. And let's ask you guys who you think driver of the day is. Who is your driver of the day for Vegas Grand Prix? And, well, the track layout in terms of racing, yeah, delivered. Still not a great track, but it did deliver a great race. So, yeah.
Yeah, just like Baku, I suppose. Although the
Yeah.
track in terms to actually drive is worse. It just accept. I'll not make that comment actually about the Azerbaijan government.
Yeah.
Yeah, best not to.
As so the options for driver of the day, it's hard obviously because there's only 4 options I can put, but the options for driver of the day, guys, are Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Sergio Perez, and Oscar Piastri. So out of those 4, let me know who you think driver of the day is. But I could have put, if I allowed to, I could have put Ocon in there. Come from 16th up to 4th. Stroll, came from 19th up to 5th. So there's plenty of contenders out there for driver of the day. But yeah, I'd go with Leclerc, and definitely over the course of the weekend, the the driver of the weekend, and just needs to make sure Leclerc he keeps this form up, and hopefully Ferrari next year will deliver a car that can do what they did this weekend at basically every Grand Prix. Because if he keeps this up, that bad luck eventually will, come to an end.
Yeah, and well, I mean Perez as well. He was 17th after the first lap.
Yeah,
Of course, got a little bit lucky with the safety car, but he was doing a very good job on those hard tires.
yeah, that
Um,
that
but
first stint was very good.
but yeah, I'm gonna head off now, mate. Thanks for staying up
Yeah,
to
no
silly
problem.
hours and doing this race watch along. It's always a pleasure to be on, and I'll see you. It's not such a great time for me. Oh wait, is the race on the Saturday next week?
No, it's
No, no, okay. It's still on the Sunday. Yeah, well,
yeah,
I'll see you next week. At not as good of a time for me.
yeah. But honestly, I'm thankful that this event is over because it's been hell. So yeah, thank
Yes.
God it's over. Um, and yeah, as soon as the stream ends, I'll definitely be getting straight in bed. But yeah, cheers for coming on and
And then
helping
your
out.
alarm needs to be set for the tennis.
Yeah, yeah. It's on at
Don't forget.
a bit earlier today, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 hours earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely try and make sure I'm awake around when it starts. But yeah, massive thank you to coming on, and as well, thank you for coming on for practice, even though you were only on for like 10 minutes because
Oh,
Sykes' car exploded.
well, Slice's car had bloody been done by the thinger when I was in the shower before I even come on the stream. Like,
Yeah,
it was bloody ridiculous, wasn't it?
yeah. I think you came on literally like a minute after it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, cheers, mate, for coming on. And yeah, I'll talk to you again, obviously, later and obviously on stream in Abu Dhabi. Cheers, mate.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, mate. You have a good rest of your day, and thanks to everyone in the chat for your continued support.
Right. See you later, mate. Cheers.
See ya. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, massive thanks for him coming on. Like I said, for the practice one as well, because it was a bit of a fuckery on what was it? It would have been Friday afternoon for him because I think he was expecting to come on for an hour or so, and yeah, we were on for together for like 10 minutes. Anyway, that is the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and yeah, it was a great race, and I am happy to say that. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and complain that we had a great race. I love Formula One. But I am going to get into a reaction, not a gigantic reaction, because as I said, guys, I am tired and I have had a stressful weekend, as you saw with what happened yesterday with me having to quit my stream early. It's not been the greatest weekend for my health. Having to, change my body clock so drastically. I'm going to have to do it again when I go uni next week and for the Grand Prix next weekend. So yeah, thankfully we got through it, and next year I definitely will make sure not to do a watch along for every single session and just stick to what I normally do. But yeah, I think what we'll do whilst you guys are voting on that poll at the top of the chat, again, let me know who your driver of the day is. I'm just going to go whiz through all the teams and get into my general thoughts as to how each team did. So Red Bull, yeah, lucky to win as far as I'm concerned. Max Verstappen and Red Bull were nowhere near as quick today as we thought they would be. The start of the race, yeah, Max, in hindsight, looking back, he did force Leclerc off and he deserved a 5-second penalty, even though I think in hindsight, probably the FIA should have told Max to let Leclerc through, but, at least the right thing happened in the end. And then Max's tyres fell off. Leclerc got past. Max then had to serve his penalty, came out in a bit of traffic, passed George Russell, then had his front wing damaged by Russell turning in. And it was all falling apart. And then, as we said towards the end of that race, that collision was really what won him the race, because it caused a safety car and it brought him right back into play and gave him fresher tyres, most importantly, compared to Charles Leclerc. And that ultimately is what won Max Verstappen this Grand Prix. Yeah, the overtakes he did were great, but if it wasn't for that safety car, Max Verstappen was not winning the race today. He was probably finishing third at best, maybe even not in third place. It would have been definitely a very different race had the safety car not come out for that debris. I mean, it was right, the safety car coming out, but you know what I mean. Sergio Perez did get very lucky to get up to third place. His pace, though, was very strong. His first stint, he did a really good job and put himself in position to get lucky. And sometimes in life, you do have to make your own luck, and that's what Sergio Perez did. And then, yeah, had a great battle with Leclerc, kind of a battle with Verstappen as well. And then, yeah, eventually got up to second place after Leclerc made a mistake. Then, on the final lap, Leclerc dive-bombed Perez and took second place. I still think Perez should have at least tried to defend, given it was the last lap, and there was no point taking the risk of leaving the door open for Leclerc. And surely he would have known that Leclerc, with nothing to lose, was going to go for the dive bomb. So I don't know why he left the door open like he did. But still, very good drive, and now he's finishing third place. Hamilton's finished a lot lower in this race. Perez has, I think, now officially secured second in the championship, which should keep him at Red Bull. But Red Bull now as well break a record. They are the first team ever to win 20 races in a single season. Congratulations to them, breaking even more records in 2023. Mercedes-Benz were started off with Russell not too bad and was looking good really up until Russell turned into Max Verstappen, causing a collision, deservedly got the penalty, had to pit, then was stuck in traffic, eventually did come through on track to finish in fourth, but then deservedly was dropped down for the, causing a collision. Poor mistake by Russell, cost himself there what probably would have been, if he had just let Max go, he would have finished in third place. So he's only got himself to blame in costing himself the podium. For Lewis Hamilton, bad weekend, not a very good day, but at least he came home with some points and ended up still beating Russell in the race. But Mercedes come away with 10 points, which is not good, because Ferrari, of course, who we'll go on to now, have come away from this race with 26 points, and that means Ferrari are only 4 points behind Mercedes in the championship with one race to go. And looking at the form at the minute, I think Ferrari are probably going to finish ahead of Mercedes in the championship. So, yeah, Ferrari should have won today. They were unlucky. They had the pace. Leclerc was brilliant. Ferrari were brilliant. They got everything right. They did everything right. They just got unlucky. They did the best they could. And in the end, it just wasn't quite enough. But yeah, Charles Leclerc, my driver of the day, he raced his heart out today. He absolutely leathered his car out there and gave it absolutely everything, and is by far as well the driver of the weekend. And you have to say, if you look at the last few races, he's been probably one of the best drivers on the grid in the last few races. It's good to see Charles Leclerc back to his best that we saw in 2022. And again, fingers crossed Ferrari carry this momentum into next year, because if they do, maybe we'll see Leclerc back to his best on a regular basis next season. For Carlos Sainz, because of what happened at the start, him colliding with Hamilton, which was a poor mistake. After that, it was a damage limitation race. Did come home to finish in sixth, which is a good result. But yeah, obviously was screwed over with what happened with the manhole cover on, would have been Thursday in Vegas. And who knows what would have happened if Ferrari actually started first and second. I think Ferrari still probably would have won the race, even with the safety car. But we will never know where the Ferrari would have won the first ever Las Vegas Grand Prix. Let's go now on to McLaren. Lando Norris having a very scary accident and unusual accident causing his DNF. Thankfully, he's all okay. But yeah, it was a shame to see him exit the Grand Prix so early. And then Oscar Piastri, what a drive. Brilliant overtaking. That move on Gasly was unbelievably good. Unfortunately, though, his tyres were suffering a lot towards the end, meaning he had to pit. At least he still got, though, a couple points. But yeah, he deserved more today. Piastri was one of the best drivers out there by, quite clearly, one of the best up there, definitely with Leclerc. Thankfully, though, for McLaren, the next Grand Prix, the last Grand Prix of the season, the Yas Marina track in Abu Dhabi, should suit their car well. Both drivers are very quick there, and I think McLaren will return to being very competitive next week. So if you're a McLaren fan, don't worry. You will see McLaren having another strong weekend one more time before the end of the year. Aston Martin had a very good race. Lance Stroll finishing in 5th. Another great result for him. 2 fifth-place finishes in a row. Good to see him end of the season well. Fernando Alonso finishing in 9th. He did not have a great race, especially with that move he did at turn 1. I have no idea why he was that ambitious. Normally, Fernando is really smart when it comes to the starts and what to do and, getting them right. But he did that start like he was a rookie. And it cost him possibly what could have been a much better result. So yeah, disappointing drive from Fernando. But 12 points for Aston Martin. McLaren only scored 2 points. So the gap in the championship between McLaren and Aston Martin is down to 9 points in the battle for 4th. So McLaren have got to make sure they have a strong final race, or else they will lose position possibly to Aston Martin. Alpine, very strong race in terms of speed. I have to say quickly, even though Pierre Gasly finished in 11th place, I do feel sorry for Gasly because he was looking really strong up until that safety car that came out, lap 26, lap 27? Again, was looking very strong. And then after that, because he had pitted a bit sooner than others, was at a disadvantage and then just fell down the field. So I think Gasly's had a very good weekend, but just got unlucky, kind of like Leclerc. Esteban Ocon, though, got a bit lucky, but also did have an amazing start where he went from 16th all the way up to 8th on the first lap. So a brilliant race for Ocon, 4th place finish. And I think, let me just check. I don't think that'll put Ocon up to 4th, not 4th, into 10th in the championship, but it will put him quite a bit closer. And actually, no, not quite as close as I thought it would. But yeah, I'll get into the drivers' standings in a moment because there has been some new position changes. But yeah, Ocon, great drive. Good weekend for Alpine. I wasn't expecting them to be as competitive here, but they did a great job. 1 race to go, and obviously they're heading for 6th place in the championship. Williams, not a good race, and I think the reason it wasn't a good race is because they suffered with really bad tyre wear. That's why they really fell off towards the end of the race, which is a shame because I think both drivers have had a great weekend. With, Alex Albon did some great defensive driving up until that moment where he went wide at turn 5. And then after that, I think he accepted that his tyres had absolutely gone. So yeah, a shame for Albon and a shame for Williams. But thankfully, Williams were not outscored today by AlphaTauri because AlphaTauri had an absolute shocker of a race. So Williams are still 7 points clear of AlphaTauri, and surely, with only 1 race to go, Williams will hold on to 7th place. AlphaTauri, not much to say. Their race was absolute shit. Their weekend was, again, the worst weekend they've had of 2023. Such a disappointment. And surely they'll be better next week. Alfa Romeo, obviously a great qualifying, but Bottas, bit unfortunate at the start, and then after that, did not go anywhere. Zhou Guanyu as well didn't really go anywhere either. So another poor race for Alfa Romeo. And for Haas F1, the two drivers, I think, drove well. Kevin Magnussen ended up 13th. The Haas pace was about what you expected. But yeah, ultimately, there was nothing really they could do to finish in the top 10. But guys, there you go. That is my reaction to this Grand Prix. Just a quick, just quickly, just want to let you know what's happened with the top 10 of the championship standing. So, Sergio Perez, is too far clear now of Lewis Hamilton to be caught. Carlos Sainz is now up to 4th in the championship, but he is level on points with Fernando Alonso. The only reason Sainz is ahead is because he has won a race this season, and obviously Fernando has not. Lando Norris is in 6th. Leclerc is 7 points behind now in 7th. Russell is 8th. Stroll is now 11 points clear in 10th. So Stroll, I think, will finish 10th now. And yeah, that's about it. And Ocon, obviously, a lot closer to Gasly now, but still behind Gasly in the standings. But guys, that is it for my coverage of the 2023 Las Vegas Grand Prix. Thank you guys so much for coming on to the content. Again, apologies about what happened yesterday. Feeling ill, but I needed to look after myself because I wasn't feeling good at all. But thankfully, we've got through what's been a chaotic Las Vegas Grand Prix. And thankfully, we've got a great race out of the weekend. Let me quickly, before I go, though, just finish up the poll in the chat where I've asked you guys, who is your driver of the day for the Las Vegas Grand Prix? 67 votes, and the majority of you have surprisingly voted for Max Verstappen. 38% of the vote. Leclerc second, 31%. Perez third, 17%. Piastri fourth on 11%. So yeah, there you go. And again, thank you all so much for coming along to this stream and all the streams since Thursday in covering this Las Vegas Grand Prix. Quick reminder of the schedule. Here are the next 2 live streams coming on the channel. And of course, next week is the final race of 2023. I will be live on Thursday night at 8 p.m. UK time for the final weekend preview of the season for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And then on Friday night, I'll be live at 7 p.m. UK time for the qualifying preview for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Then on the Saturday, I will be live, I think, from 10:15 a.m. UK time for about 5 hours for the final qualifying day stream of the year. And what we're going to be doing is a practice 3 watch along. Later, of course, a qualifying watch along. But in between, we're going to be watching along the final F2 sprint race of the season. And remember, guys, Teo Pourchaire can win the F2 title in that sprint race. So, yeah, critical race that is. And we'll be watching along that as well next week. And then, of course, on the Sunday, it will be the final race watch along of the season where I'll be live at 11 a.m. UK time, 2 hours before lights out for the usual build up and then the watch along. Nib, of course, will be joining me for the final time of the season. And then that will be that. And then a couple days after that, I will be doing my full season review. So yeah, that's the plan for the next, 10 days or so. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming along. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. We do previews, reviews, watch-alongs, all that stuff. We keep you absolutely bang up to date with everything going on in Formula 1 right here. So make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell. Before you go, guys, make sure to smash that like button if you haven't already. We're on 141 likes. Let's try and get up to over 150. That would be great if we could. And also, make sure to join our Discord server, link below in the description. That is a great place to keep up to date with when I go live, when I upload videos, and content updates that I post, once every, 2-3 weeks during the season. And during the off season, I will obviously still occasionally post in there when I go live, upload videos, and the occasional content update. But guys, thank you very much for this Las Vegas Grand Prix race weekend. And until my weekend preview on Thursday night at 8 p.m. UK time for the final race of 2023, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, it has been me, Shazza HD. Goodbye.